you can absolutely explain what it is. It's just it becomes exponentially more difficult the more you
I,
find out to
I
actually empirically prove it. But you can
what do you mean by empirically
absolutely
prove? You
explain
can't
how it
physically, you
works.
can't
And
physic.
I have, can I finish? I have actually had very detailed explanations about how I thought it was working, right?
I'll
Guess
give you
what?
the
It was
problem.
too complicated. People mostly ignored it.
Arwijn, I'll give you the problem. There's a problem with the sun, okay? The problem is I live close to the Tropic of Cancer in Florida, and I get less daylight hours than people north of me, which are further from the Tropic of Cancer. How are you ever going to explain that?
Because however the sun manifests is literally not in a perfectly linear way. It's an angular manifestation. What I basically say is the sun, but all of the celestial lights, but I mean most prominently the sun, because of look at how much impact that makes just observationally alone. It's a non-local hologram. It's a non-local holographic angular manifestation, which is like a hologram that doesn't actually have a position, which is super surreal and is difficult enough just to describe it. And this is how I've attempted it, right? So yeah, you can
Yeah,
say you figured
I
it
can
out
agree
better,
with
but
that.
that doesn't make it
I don't think
suddenly an explanation. Can I finish? It doesn't make it an explanation that everybody can just get on board with, because it's really difficult to actually understand it.
Well, I don't know if you have an exact explanation there, because if you're saying it's an angular relationship, I'm closer to the Tropic of Cancer.
Yeah.
You understand that? And the people that are north of me get more hours of daylight.
Yeah.
So
So
how does that angular explanation, like, can you give me the reasoning? So I grant you your position. I grant the sun is a hologram and it's an angular position. So now can you explain how the north would get more than someone who lives close to the Tropic of Cancer?
it's very
Does
simple.
the
Hold
globe
on.
give
Can
you
I
the
answer?
answer?
Can I answer? Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It's very simple. Take away all the assumptions of a physical position in which perspective would matter, right? And then you realize how it's manifesting is basically nonlinear, because it does not have an actual position, which can create aberrations of how it manifests depending on the region. It's not how it manifests is not based on that original assumption that it has an actual location.
Okay, how do I falsify your claim?
You don't.
Exactly.
It's the
Oh,
only
pseudoscience,
explanation
bro.
left. It's the only explanation left, because no other
No,
form of
it's not.
reasoning will make sense in any way.
Well,
I have a very
the thing is that the sun does curve. Like if you're going west, like from Florida or whatever, like you're gonna have to, like the sun does like arc to the right. Basically, it curves to the right. Like from the equator north, it goes to the right. From the equator south, it goes to the left. Like the two 24-hour suns. So I mean, I would just say that. I mean, even if we take the old AE map, I mean, just the north is pretty similar on the globe or an AE map with Polaris and continents and so on. So as the sun is circuiting around, it makes sense that north of you would get more daylight. I mean, you're closer to the Tropic of Cancer, but you're wider out on the circuit, where they're closer in on the circuit.
the circuit's below me, right?
No, I'm saying the circuit going to the north,
Already,
going to the North Pole,
is about as
elevation.
specific.
Talk about elevation angles to the North Pole, the whole center, the whole north rotation. They're closer in on that rotation. You're further out. So the sun, that's why they get the 24-hour sun when they go fully north.
Right.
You know, the whole thing.
If you realize that the sun is basically just like all the other celestial lights on a apparent sphere that has no actual location, it only has an angular relation to observation on the Earth, and that alters its angular relation depending on the location on the Earth and the time passing. And then, what does it actually do? Well, guess what? If you imagine the celestial sphere to have like an axis Polaris at the north point of the axis, Southern Cross at the southern point of the axis, and the equator being exactly the circle that surrounds it, well, guess what? The sun moves parallel to that equatorial circle and then goes up on the north side in a circle and then goes down on the south side in a circle. And how the celestial sphere then angles in relation to the Earth, that determines how the sun manifests over that very specific circle on the apparent celestial sphere that has none of it has actual locations. That's what's happening.
So if you take a Walter Bislin model with a little personal atmospheric dome and it puts the stellarium data within that and puts it on a flat plane, is that like a general layout to what you're saying? Like we all have a range around us in which we're going to see the angular positions of these objects, like a hemispherical range of view. But like, that Bislin kind of basic visual, is that kind of idea? Because I mean, on the Bislin one, you can move that thing around. I mean, that is the stellarium data, so.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. It's just, think about it. You could, if you are good at a little bit of flexible thinking, what is basically happening is that the globe Earth supposed outer space celestial model is actually how it is. It's just not physical, and none of them have actual positions. It's all just angular. But it works like that. Like it is a sphere. It's just a sphere that has no actual position, of which any observer is going to be the center on a flat Earth.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree that it makes the most sense that the celestial sphere changes angularly and is essentially orientated to your position. So in reality, the entire sky looks as if it rotates around you specifically, not around the earth, but around you specifically. So, and that I believe that's what the scripture meant when it says Psalms 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of Yah, is because that's what it's trying to tell you is he's a personal God and he gives you access and view to his heavens more than you can see on the earth. Way
That's
more.
amazing. That is actually a really interesting interpretation. Just think of the challenge that the people that wrote it had to try to explain all this to a common person to satisfy them. Like it's surreal difficulty. Right now we got all this technical insight and geometrics and all, like we got much more education going around on average in order to have a mental framework to try to understand it. Back then they didn't have that. The challenge was just surreal, and that they even managed to try to communicate these details in non-geometric language is just astounding that they even managed to attempt it, in my opinion.
Arwijn, one question real quick. Is there anything physical in the sky? Like, is there an actual physical sun and we just see it in different places, or there's nothing
No.
physical in the sky?
There's nothing physical in the sky.
So it's just
I
empty
agree.
up there?
It's heaven,
Well, there's
dude.
gas. There's gas, right? Gas, it does expand within the available volume of the closed system that we live in. But there
So
is
there's
no
gas up there
there's
creating a
there's no
hologram?
light that you're gonna go towards and then see the angular size of it increase as you approach its supposed actual position, because none of them have actual positions, because they're all angular manifested holographic apparitions.
Yeah, this place is magical, Oscar. It's not material. It's not as mathematic as people have made it out to be. It seems to be a magical spiritual realm that we live in, and people want to throw that out for some reason. I don't know why we can't grant a magical spiritual realm when we have like weird concepts like the thing that hurts you makes you better. That's counterintuitive. Why would I have to work out and hurt myself in order to get stronger? Why do I need the rattlesnake after I get bit by him for the antidote? That's a weird concept.
Right. The mind does obstruct a lot, right? Because the mind knows that if you fill it up more, things get heavier. So it naturally obstructs more insight that way. Yeah. That's just the human condition. But I mean,
Yeah, but
there's something physical though about the celestial sphere. It's just not those things we see on it. The light is physical. That's the weirdest thing, right? It's a angular manifestation. The light is real. It manifests and it arrives. It gets absorbed. It just doesn't have actual positions.
Well, so if you have like a liquid, gas, liquid, sonoluminescence, vibration, sound waves emitting in a frequency, kind of whole thing, star in a jar, and you had all of those above, but but that idea would be that they're in positions, like a
Yeah, exactly.
sonoluminescent. If it's a little
That's
bubble, if it's a
yeah.
little bubble of vibration, whatever, then it's right there. But you're not suggesting that.
No, I absolutely categorically deny that notion. I mean, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating physics phenomenon. It reveals more about the unbelievable mysteries of resonance and the relation with resonance and material, what it can do and create light and create electric fields. I mean, the physics is just mind blowing, really. And the old Tartarians really managed to figure it out architecturally, right? And that's the magic of physics that is really revealed with solar luminescence. But that is absolutely not an explanation of what the celestial lights really are. Not even close.
Now, do you think this is happening? Like, do you think it is a general AE type of layout or no? Like the AE map, like that general layout with this guy doing
No.
this, or you think it's a
Does
different
it
layout?
You know
does
why
that
I think it's not? You know why?
does
Because
it
when you look at
debunk
Because it's on the UN flag.
no,
does it debunk the moon map as well?
dude, stop. I'm talking with this guy, right? So it's not that map. You know why? I'm asking. You know why it's not that map?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
No, I'm asking you. Do you know why it's not that map?
That was a rhetorical question.
Well,
It's
that's a
not a
big topic.
rhetorical
If
question.
you're
It's a
asking me,
literal question.
if you're asking me, there's a lot of factors that yeah. If you're asking for one, like one particular way you're saying the map doesn't work with reality, is that what you're saying?
How do you know it is absolutely certainly wrong? I'm asking. Do you know? Like the most obvious one. If you don't know it, just tell me, and I'll tell you.
Well,
Antarctica
no,
is
I
not
mean,
a
there's a lot in my mind. I'm just trying to think of like which one it might be. That's the part that's
Yeah, the
hitting me the most. If
obvious
you want to
one. Yeah.
just share it, yeah, I'm trying to think like which one rises to the top. I'm kind of sitting here. Might take me a minute to think of which is like the one. If you're asking for just one.
No, it's just one that really, really stands out. Once you see it, you can never unsee
The
it.
size of the maps, the sun,
No,
the North Pole.
just tell
I
us.
mean,
no.
distances in the south are in
Okay, let me
question.
tell you. Let me tell you, right? So you got that
Right.
disk map, right? When you look at the disk map, like what stands out about like the shape of the continents?
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
They kind of distort when you go south.
That's right.
That's
Australia
what I
is
said.
not a thin stretched piece of land. Like it is measurably not that. And that's how you know this is not literal. The scale is
Yeah.
incorrect. And so it is not literally the terrain. It's not what it
Yeah,
is.
maps have that. Yes.
So you don't think it is?
There is a way though that you can keep warping it around until you get the least distorted version. You know what that is?
The globe.
No, absolutely not.
Just tell us. What's your map,
Yeah,
Arwijn?
it's rectangular and it's looping.
All right. Well, let me just
The
post this real
rectangular
Like
quick.
the
projection, it's
Mercator.
all squares, right? There's no circles, it's all squares.
The Mercator, and then the wormholes already exist. They scientifically, mathematically can prove them. So would that be the Pac-Man sun idea?
It's the
Basically,
asteroid one.
but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not sun. There's no sun Pac-Man. No, it's the very available volume, the realm that we live in is a looping continuum. The whole thing is the loop. We are basically living in a wormhole realm.
A wormhole? What? You cut out at the
A
end.
wormhole realm.
Oh,
That's cool.
A tunnel that loops in on itself, comparable to the Train Man station in the second Matrix movie.
so then what happens when you get to the end? Do you come back around, or
There is no end. It loops. It's a continuum.
Sounds like a sphere.
Yeah, it isn't though. There's no curve. You go in a straight line and you end up exactly where you were. Just like Neo when he tries to run out of the Train Man station over the tracks.
so it's like an infinitely looping toroid, like a toroidal?
Yeah, but it's
tunnel
not a
vortex?
toroid. It's a straight line.
Well, but like a toroid, you have. No, I'm not saying the whole Earth is a toroid, but I'm just saying in a toroid structure, you have like, the ones that are animated. I have some that are. By the way, here are two things I want to post.
I
Just
get
real quick.
what you mean, but that's just mathematical.
This is like the line where
No, but
Japan.
hold on. Just give me like
is the
20.
next day.
Hold on, you guys. Just give me like 20 seconds. Let me just complete my thing. I'll pass the mic. All right. First of all, this real quick. This is the Pierce quincuntial projection. I just posted it. I threw a
Right.
black line on there where the equator would be. My only point is to say that Australia is not distorted or not as distorted in that one. Now, I'm not saying that's what the Earth is. I just wanted to
No,
point
I
that
get
out.
it. It's a good way to project it where the scale is relatively okay. It's just when you actually make lines from one place to another, it becomes a total mess. So it's not literally that. This is just a way to still project it into a disc shape like that and have it to be the least distorted. But I mean, it is technically completely warped.
Well, and you have a huge.
These are not
yeah.
the locations in relation to the other locations.
How do you? I would ask how you know that, but let me just say that we could get into that too. There's a lot of angles. It's like a fractal
So
unfolding
let
of
me
possible.
explain it. When
Well,
you are on
all right,
Africa and you go to the west, you don't bump into the side of the square. You don't then suddenly bump in a 90-degree corner to go west and arrive in Brazil. No, that's not how that position is related to the other position.
I
You're just
gotcha.
saying
See what I
Pac-Man, right?
mean? It's
No,
the
no, I
square.
hear what you're saying. I hear what that point. Yeah. Although there could be some. Yeah, you're saying that if you were to take a latitude line, like in one of those corners, basically, like from South America, and you were to make that circle, and you were just to go right into the end there, what happens? Yeah, like with that in a continuum idea, would you pop up somewhere else? But I hear what you're saying as a layout that could be problematic. Well, I just want to say I posted
In a
that.
rectangular looping system, just a rectangular map, you don't have that issue. All you have to overcome is that very, very uncomfortable, very surreal notion that we are probably stuck in a looping continuum. And people just can't handle that. It's just
All
as terrible as trying to tell them, hey, the sun doesn't have an actual position. Most people just fucking freak out.
right, so how well, let me just say this, but before, well, because there's so many things on the table. Okay, well, one thing, I mean, when you talk about continuous looping, I see Gatebreakers in here. I know he's into this one. It's often people call it the dual pole, but it's an I just posted. It's an equal area azimuthal projection from the equator. So are you talking about that kind of thing where the sun would be? I threw some circles. I think I have one of these where I threw like circles. I mean, I'm not saying this is what the Earth is, anything. I just, it's an idea. You would have the two sun paths, like a figure eight throughout the year. Is this in a looping continuum type of idea where if you were to go, west from South America, you would essentially do that infinite loop thing back? Is that the kind of layout? But you said square. So is it not that kind of the one you're referring to, the type of layout? Is
Rectangle.
not that one? So not that
It's a
one, not that
rectangle.
kind of. Well, then how do you explain the 24-hour suns on a rectangle?
Because the celestial sphere is a sphere. Yeah.
Well, you'll have to
The
explain
Earth,
that more if
the
you want.
terrain, the literal available space, the grid of actual Euclidean location is a looping rectangle. The celestial sphere that always surrounds the observer is a literal apparent sphere that has no location. That's how that works.
That's kind of really interesting because what if we had, like, if Shane were to model what he has modeled on the AE onto the Mercator? I'd be really interested to see what that looks like.
So before I forget, I just wanted to say,
See this? That's it.
you think that's the one? That's the Earth?
That's the terrain. It's the closest. because I don't exactly know, but this actually matches the scale where the continents are probably the closest to what their actual size is. I mean, it's probably still not correct, but that's like the difficulty. Like, there's just it's mind-boggling, and when you realize this, you could even go as far to make things even more goddamn complicated. When you realize that space might completely not be linear at all. That there's like locations within the same space in which there fits more room than on other spots. Yeah. But I mean, that is just so harsh on the brain. Like, I don't even want to try to figure that out yet. It's just too much.
So, Arwyn, what do you think they're actually doing when they allegedly bouncing radio waves off the radio signals off the moon?
There don't. Nobody ever does. I think it's a total scam.
All right. Well,
Don't they say-
before we shift to that, though, I just want to say from before. Sorry, let me just say, because I posted that one toroidal image, what we were talking about the infinite loop thing. I just had this other one queued up too. So that's what I was referring to, Arwyn, like the flux patterns and that infinite loop quality where the bottom comes up around and becomes the top. Now, I'm not saying that's what you're saying the Earth is, but I was just saying that's what I meant by the toroidal field looping part of it, is that the centripetal and centrifugal, and you get that like through the center, you get that kind of infinitely looping pattern. So
right, I get it, but that's a mathematical curiosity. So, but I get it that you would in your mind compare that.
Yeah, it's like a tunnel in the middle that comes in.
Thing I posted. Yeah, the animated map from a southern perspective, like you're looking outside of the realm, down on top of it, with a celestial sphere surrounding it. Like, that actually kind of shows you what I think it is. That's why I use this picture as a thumbnail for my shows, because this is what I think it is. It's like, there you got the rectangular looping system and the celestial sphere that has no location. You could regard it as a background picture. That's why it's shown like that on there. That surrounds the observer in the realm.
Oh, it's definitely interesting. Yeah, I mean, it contains so you think like the four corners of the Earth, that's what these would be?
No, there's no four corners. It's looping. I
okay.
didn't animate it like that, but it literally connects directly. So you would see the western part of that picture just directly connecting to the eastern part of that picture, and it's looped indefinitely. It's like it's at those apparent distances simultaneously, because the entire space itself loops. It's not the terrain that loops, it's the space in which the terrain resides that loops. It's a spatial loop.
I don't know, bro. I'm not able to like mentally conceive of what you're saying. I'm like really interested and trying hard, but it's hard to wrap my head around.
I know. I've been struggling to try to make people understand for a decade, so I get it.
No, I appreciate you sharing your ideas, and it's good to hear, and I'm always interested. So I hear what you're saying now, that there wouldn't be corners, because yeah, if it's looping like that, but it would just be like a strip, basically like a massive long strip, and there would never be a corner. That's interesting.
Exactly.
I hear you on that, but then in addition, I like that kind of covers that part, the corners, and I guess you would just say maybe it gets too cold and you get too north or south. But I guess what I was going to say is if you go west from South America and then you do pop up over in Australia, the looping effect, how does that work? Like, it's the same reality. Like, is there a feeling? Is there a transition? Or it just happens seamlessly? Or because that's usually not how we consider the physical world to work.
No,
I'm thinking of it like a conveyor belt.
There is no border. It's a continuum. It is permanently connected. It's like the entire realm is the loop. There's no door. There's no teleportation. The door is every part of the realm. It's one singular door.
Okay, so it's not like you're getting to one side and looping to another. It's more like you're always looping every time you move through space, you're saying? Like, if I were to walk 10 feet forward?
The space itself is the thing that's looping, not the content.
around you. So as I move, it loops around me, the observer. Or
No,
I'm just trying to
you are
understand.
part of the realm. You are a physical part of it. You just happen to be moving and observing. But it's not the material that's looping. It's the space in which the material exists that is looping. That's why it interconnects with itself, east to west. That's a continuum. That's a wormhole. That's what it actually is.
Okay, so the space around. I mean, if you have like water, let's say you're in the ocean, and you go west from South America, and you're gonna come over to Australia, and you're getting like look at that one you posted there, like the basic Mercator type thing. Once you get to that point, 2/3 of the way through the Pacific Ocean trip, normally we would just think that the water, the water just continues as is, like as reality. Like if you're on a lake, whatever, the water continues. So how? You're not saying that you're spatially Pac-Manning. This is not like a
Yeah,
spatial
that's
warp.
literally what I am saying
You are
several
saying that.
times now. This
But you're
space
jumping.
is
You're
the
you're
thing
not you're
that's
not
looping.
jumping positions. Well, that makes me think of jumping positions in an otherwise stationary physical world. You're just jumping positions. But you're not saying
It
that's
might
what's happening.
seem you're jumping position to a stationary observer that's observing the thing moving within the space, but to the thing moving, no, it's like the realm is like scrolling underneath you. That's it.
So I have a question, Arwin. If everything you say is like it is, how do you get out of the loop?
You don't.
Well, when you die.
So
You don't know.
So-
I mean, our physical body can't get out because this is all the actual physical existence that we can prove exists. There is no guarantee that physicality exists outside of the looping continuum. Like any of it. That there's available volume in which matter can exist. There's no evidence of this. Like we learned to assume that thanks to all the heliocentric endless space indoctrination, right? If there's endless space, what has to be filled up? We got used to it. There's no guarantee that there is physical existence outside of this realm at all.
Yeah.
You're breaking up a little bit, Doc. Yeah, you're breaking up. Maybe just give it a second. Give it a second. Well, if you want to give your connection a second, because you're breaking up. I was just gonna say. Oh, no, I forgot what I was gonna say. Go ahead. Go ahead if your mic's back. Oh, it was gonna be something quick, but then I forgot it.
A question about the
Yeah, I
loop,
mean,
question about observation, or what was it?
all I was going to say was what you're
Transform and roll out.
Yeah, not working, Doc. You're gonna have to wait for your connection to figure it itself out. Spatial Pac-Man. Spatial Pac-Man.
Percentage has
I
been
don't know.
trying to tell him.
What's that, Tora?
I said percentage has been telling us this for a while.
Spatial Pac-Man?
I even made the game a snake over it. Funny.
Crazy Snakes?
Well, look, a way you could actually very easily imagine it, there's like older computer games. Like, what's the really old one? The side scroller, where you shoot shit in this little spaceship. Super old game, Atari era. What's it called again? Space Invaders?
There's like
Yeah,
Gattaca or
okay.
something.
Right, the
I know
very
that game.
right. Well, that is actually a really good way to visualize the looping realm. Another excellent, absolute, the most prominent version that I've ever come across is the map in Civilization 5, the game.
Nope, don't know that
It
one.
is literally a looping rectangle. And you can literally scroll over it, you can zoom out, you can zoom in, you move, you go east, you go west, and say, oh, it's discovered that it's a sphere. Yeah, but what you're actually literally geometrically looking at is a looping rectangle. It's literally the map in Civilization 5. It's the best example.
So going back to Space Invaders, how are you comparing that?
Well, because in Space Invaders, the camera is centered on the ship. So when the ship moves right, the world scrolls past you instead of the ship moving. In Pac-Man, you see the Pac-Man moving over a space and the game field on which the camera is centered. So the camera is centered in Pac-Man on the space, and the thing that you're controlling is moving over that space. In Space Invaders, it's centered on the thing that's moving, and it's the realm around it that moves. See? And now you can understand how that works. That's the difference. That's why
I feel stupid
like
right now because
in
I'm
comparison,
still
because the
trying to
Pac-Man is
figure it out.
a field-centered game, and that's just very. Then you think, oh, well, would you go on the right of the screen and then you teleport to the left? Yeah, that's nonsense. It's that you only think that because the camera is centered on the game field and not
So
on the character that you're moving.
so we're the spaceship and Space Invaders,
Basically,
and the spaceship is just kind of staying still in relation to the realm of the game, so to speak, right? And you're saying that it's the realm, i.e., the space, that's moving around the spaceship or the world. Okay.
well, yeah, you could think of it like that. I mean, that's all relative. But the point is that is a better way to visualize it, because when you could just keep going, boom, boom, boom. Oh, look, the same thing is flying past me below. Oh, look, again. You're just moving in a straight line, dead on reckoning straight, no deviations, no curve, no turn, straight line. Oh, look, it keeps going, moving past me. Oh, the same thing again, and again, and again. I didn't see a border. I wasn't teleporting. No, you're just moving in a straight line and
Yeah,
seeing
but
the same things move below you over and over again.
right,
That's
but the thing that goes against that, though, I mean, the thing that obviously the global claim is that if you go around, you'll come around the other side. And in a way, that's what you're saying too. However, the thing is, in a general thing, if we have just like a planar stationary Earth and we're on it, if you go from one point, you start getting into like Euclidean geometry, this and that. But I'm just saying, if you start going from one point forward, you're never going to end up back. You're just going to keep going on that plane. So that's why what you're saying contradicts that. Like if we go outside right now and we replicate it, you're never going to be able to have that happen.
Well, that's why I didn't understand the looping aspect to the surface or the Earth itself that he was kind of illustrating
No.
originally.
I don't understand what the objection is. I don't think I could have clarified it any more than this.
Because in physical reality, when you make a straight line, you don't come back around where you were. Like if I leave my house and I go in a straight line, I'm not going to get back to my house unless you get into some globe idea. I'm going around a globe, but I would never be able to get back to my house. Like a straight line from any point in space will never return you to that point unless you loop back around or make a circle.
Yeah, unless to specifically engage in the loop in reality, you have to go the entire distance, of course. You can't just like, oh, I'm just going to make a separate tiny volume that loops. Oh, really? How are you going to do that? No, we are stuck in a loop. It has a specific size. You can't just make a mini loop out of nothing. Unless
All
you're
right,
going
so okay, I hear
simulate
you.
it. I'm not done yet. Unless you simulate it in a computer game. And then you can determine how wide the loop is.
I got you. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. So yeah, if it's a large enough area that the loop wouldn't happen unless you were going incredibly long, like unless you get to the.
Unless you go the entire equator span. Yeah. That total length.
or the length at any latitude.
The latitude doesn't matter. It just the total distance. It matters. If you don't go that total distance, you don't arrive back where you started because it's not enough to span the total distance.
So 24 is it 24,901, 25,000 miles? You think, or is that
probably
number?
Yeah.
So it's at that 25,000 mile point that this would happen. You're saying?
Yeah.
That what would
most
happen?
likely, yes.
That you'd loop back around like Pac-Man, or what? Did you figure it out, Gio? What's going on?
I guess that in which that effect in which going in a straight line becomes possible that you would end up at the other side is if you do 25, you got to hit 25K miles, he's saying, for that to happen.
And then you start
that is
back
the
over
looping
from where you
distance,
first, from where you originally started?
Well, like I guess the idea, if you left your house and you went in one straight line 25,000 miles on a globe, they would say you'd end up back at your house. And on what he's saying, you would also end up back at your house. And I guess he's saying, but you have to make that whole 25,000. And then I still think there'd have to be a transition in the center. I mean, if the Earth is planar,
hold on, dude. You're jumping like 10 miles ahead, bro. You're saying you got to go the full distance, but then how do you end up back at your house, bro? Like there's like a big missing gap here.
because it's directly interconnected. That's how.
So like a conveyor belt.
That's the entire point of a loop. It's directly connected in a straight line.
Like a conveyor belt, like where you set your groceries on at the counter.
Yeah, but the counter there's thousands of miles, so like you can simulate a smaller loop, but you'd have to emulate a looping space within the computer in a simulation to do that in a smaller way, because physically you can't. We don't have the power to bend space.
I don't know. I don't even think space is something to be bent, being that it's not a thing.
Yeah, that's the point.
So I don't know,
We
bro.
can't bend space, so we can't make a mini loop. And that's it.
I'm so lost, bro. So it loops back or it doesn't?
He said it loops back, Dice Slow.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, I can't say that.
Thanks for giving me the chance to explain all this, though. I do really appreciate that. I don't get a lot of chance to attempt to explain it on a higher level, so I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, man. Oh, it's been great listening. I appreciate you sharing it, and it's really interesting. It sparked a lot of things to consider, and so yeah, I'm still trying to fully understand
That's why
it.
I'm on this for like a decade.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm like fully understanding what you're saying, but I think like at least 80% of it. Like, I still have some questions and things. That's why I'd like to even hear explained in more angles.
80% is really good. So that I can applaud that. That is 80% is a lot. Cause it's fucking complicated as hell.
I was gonna say too, so the old like Mercator map that they put in all the schools on the wall, you're saying actually is the right one in the end of the day? The globe thing sitting on the table is called with the Mercator on the wall.
That's the fucked up thing about it. Yes.
Oh,
and
man.
that's why, and here's another thing, that's why subconsciously, before your cognition starts it, you can accept it.
But wait, the continents are all it has the same problem that they're distorted.
Could be. But I mean, technically how the projection works, right? With the latitude, longitude lines, it is a square grid. And what the land is and how it fits, that's where I lose my mind. As I said, it could be that like Africa, the continent of Africa, has more surface that it takes up in the same amount of space compared to other continents that have all that space but don't actually have as much surface. Space
Wow, that's
literally
trippy.
within the realm not be linear, and I know it fucks my mind up. Okay, and it's just a complication. Like, how the hell are you gonna even figure this out? I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Arwijn. Definitely really cool stuff.
Well, the looping thing does kind of solve some things that like an AE map just doesn't, you know. When there's the idea that you could like circle around an AE thing, you know, obviously, but then you have to keep making that heading. And then the idea the sun does that, but the sun doesn't do that in the south.
Right.
But anyways, but leaving the sun out, but even just the ground, like are the distances really the distances of the AE map, you know, that
Well,
between
the
South
most
America
important
and
factor is
Australia?
the most important factor is that the rectangular map doesn't have standard universal scaling consistencies from one position to the other, which shows that it's not a warped projection, right? Unlike the disk, which blatantly is and makes it like a distorted from the original as is projection. That's the big difference.
No, I hear what you're saying. In terms of that, like if you took this even just like this one I'm about to post, which is I don't think it's not technically the Mercator. Now that one has Africa not as elongated and so on, but
Yeah, but you know what that is? Because this is not an original rectangular projection. This is a spherical projection that has been lent from a disk projection that has been lent from a rectangular projection and then put back into a rectangular projection. This is like a 4-step projection distortion, and that's why it's super warped like that. It's totally non-realistic. It's been like double Haversine. See what I mean?
yeah, yeah. There could multiple like transformations occur, and then you get into a
Right, from a rectangle to a disc to a ball back to a rectangle, and that's why it looks like this.
So you're suggesting that it is this square thing with this looping effect, and that basically the celestial sphere maps with the globe model, and then the looping effect maps with the globe model just enough for them to, and then the way the celestial sphere follows us, as you're saying as well, and all of that, it's just like a completely twisted philosophy that they have to put, you know, that it can be modeled as a globe in some ways, and then it's basically just like a philosophical propaganda take over the whole thing of that it is. So it's really
100% correct. What they did is they figured out how it worked, realized it's super surreal, then basically created a mathematical scheme, a trick to warp all of that thing that they knew it was into a globe. And what that just had to do is say, no, it's a sphere. It curves. That's basically all they needed to do for people to snap into seeing it like that.
well. How do you think the overlap? Because the globe model does have some efficacy in terms of it. So how do you think that? How is the overlap with the globe so good that it's almost indistinguishable from what you're saying? Although it is indistinguishable, I wouldn't even say almost, but I'm just saying that in a way, you know, that there's a lot of things that do line up. I mean, they've convinced the whole world of it. Not everybody is completely mentally deranged. I mean, there's a lot of intelligent people now. Yeah, they may not be the most truth-seeking, or they may have belief issues or ego or whatever, but
But it's
problem is that
because of coordinate-wise, it does match, right? The whole globe system is based on the actual coordinate relations.
of the sky.
Yeah. What they
Yeah.
did is they took the rectangular realm with the apparent non-actual position celestial sphere surrounding the observer, then turned the rectangle within that apparent sphere into a disk, wrapping the celestial sphere around it in like also, right? Then change it from that disk into a sphere. And now they say, oh, look, the sphere of the celestials is parallel to the sphere of the earth. And there you go. It's
So
all
you think they went? So you're saying you're suggesting they went from basically square to AE flat, then popped it into a globe? That's
Yes,
what you're
yes.
because these guys always try to
That's
say,
how it
oh,
works.
you know,
That's how
the
you
globe.
transform it. They use the Haversine formula for exactly that.
Yeah. Well, the globe guys always say that, you know, that the AE is a projection of the globe. They always try to say that, like, oh, it's the globe first, and then they made the AE out of that. But you're kind of
Yeah,
suggesting,
yeah, I
the
know
opposite.
that they like to say that. Yeah, of course, right? It's always exactly the opposite of reality.
Yeah. Yeah. But wow, that's a lot to think about. So like a 25,000-mile loop, and then what is the north-south distance? Like, do you have
Yeah,
a set on that?
that's the question. We don't know.
Is it 25, 25?
We don't know
That's what
that
the
it
globe.
even
That's what
is
the globe
looping.
says. That's what the
I
globe
don't
says, right?
know if it's looping north to south. I don't know. It could be, but we don't know. There could be more space. There could be an entire realm just as large as our known realm, north and south. Dude, there could be 32 other entire realm spaces, north and south, that after traversing 32 realms, you end up back. I don't know how much there is north and south.
Wait, why 32? That was interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, why not, right?
Gotcha.
And there would be 33 realm segments, and I mean the Freemasons and like why? Of course it would. That's why.
I mean, 32 and 64-bit. I mean, that's like you say it's a simulation.
No, but it's 32, of course, and our realm, which would make 33 realms. Or rather,
Okay.
one very, very, very long realm, north to south, not so wide, east to west, that is basically carved up into 33 regions through the sun equator and antiquator. Equator, antiquator, equator, antiquator. That's how you basically determine the size of a realm. Right? With the equator, it's always the most hot on average. At the anti-equator, or like Antarctica or Arctica, where it's the coldest, that's the other side. That's the edge of a realm. And we don't know what is beyond there. There could be a barrier. I don't know. It could be.
You think those realms, like when you say that, would be they would have the same light source we have? It would just present itself angularly. Like, would they have the same stars and
The
everything? Would you
same?
think? Speculation.
What do you mean? The same non-local holographic angular manifestation that isn't a
Yeah,
thing, it has an actual position? Yeah, sure.
yeah,
It has the
yeah.
same non-actual thing, yes.
I only ask that because it says in scriptures and old things that God created two great lights. You know what I mean? So like a lot of times one of the issues I had with outer ponder idea is they're invoking more great lights.
Right? So here's another a pencil sketch that I made looking at a side view from outside of the loop, outside of, well, basically east. You're like east outside, or no, wait, west outside of the loop, which allows you to see how there could be more realm space north and south. Not saying that that is absolute, but if there was, this is how it would relate. It also shows you like that arc, right? The little hill and dale where the sun is at its lowest on average at the antiquators and at its highest at the equators. So that's another sketch to help visualize that. I drew this like 8 years ago, but
Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. It does give a little bit more of the visual of it. So you think there could be more, like many, many more of these, and then would they'd all be different, or they would all have a similar functioning?
well, it wouldn't be the same realm, so who knows what it's like. It would probably have a same equator region and anti-equator region, cold and warm in relation to the rest. But how the surface is there and what is ocean, I have no idea. It could be entire realms that are just ocean or entire realms that are all just land. Who knows what is out there? We don't know. You'd have
And
to
what about it just looping north? What about it just looping north to south, the same as it does east to west? What about that idea?
That could be, but I mean, there would be like really telltale signs of that, right? Like you just go north, and then I'm south. I mean, that would really stand out. And once they figured it out, there would be like just races. It's like, okay, we're gonna take planes, and we're all gonna fly north, and then they're all ending up south. I mean, people would figure it out if it was directly looping at the antiquators. So I think that is very unlikely. If it is looping north to south, I think that there are at least 2 other realms there before you basically return. But I mean, all of that is just speculation, right? And that's very clear that speculation. I don't know. It could be a literal barrier there. Who knows? Right? I don't know if it is looping north to south, but what I do know is like I don't see any other way than that the realm is looping east to west. That is what I'm really certain about.
Dude, check this. I just randomly was looking at these map projections. Check this one I just found. It's on this website. Here, I'll post the link to the site. It's top 10 map projection. But I think this is like it's just a picture that this website just added. Like they're showing this Robinson projection, and then they just basically have that as like an art piece. But look how there's another continent west of Australia, 2 of them. And remember that you'd heard about the globes that used to be there.
That's Mu.
Or on the globes they used. Well, I thought the motherland, is supposed to be in the Pacific, like where Hawaii and Fiji was. I thought, but that might be part of it too, though, if it's stretched out. But there is that one globe that there's some maps that show like another landmass, but I've just never seen that one's. It's kind of dull though. It's not very good quality. I wonder if we can reverse image find that or see what that is. It's like 2 continents, like between Africa and Australia. That's just interesting. It's just kind of a side thing, but I just saw that real quick.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't know what that is. No. Who knows? Maybe it's the forbidden continents. I mean, there might be continents that used to be that sank with the land and move. That seems to be a case, but there could be more, man, that the information hasn't even reached us yet. Hasn't even been thrown on the table by the algorithm. Who knows?
Because yep,
It is
well,
interesting.
I got to that one because I was looking at this one, this Robinson, which is similar to what you're saying, except it's curved instead of. I guess this one does have a curve, so this wouldn't really loop in the same way, unless it could. I guess it could still, but it'd be a little different. Anyways, that's why I was looking.
But here's the thing. Like I say, rectangular looping because it's like the easiest to visualize. I don't know if it's a perfectly rectangular. It could be slightly tighter to the north and the south than it is at the equator. And then it would keep going like that. I mean, I have other visuals for that. Here you go. Come on. It's taking so long. Right? This could be it. It could also be like this. These are all potential options of how the realm loops. I don't know. I don't know with absolute.
Have you seen this? Have you seen this one? Toroids all the way down.
Well,
Pretty trippy.
Trippy.
But yeah, it reminds me of that. Yeah. Well, that one has like upside down worlds, I guess, or something. But yeah, they're kind of stacked like that. Well, that's what, like, if you stack a bunch of, if you have the tunnel thing that's in the middle of a toroid, like I'm just using the word tunnel because we were talking about that before, and then if you loop them all together, then yeah, you would be in like an infinitely looping tunnel.
Right. Well,
Cycle.
yeah, if it stretches further north and south, there's multiple realms there, then yeah, it tunnel to the north and the south, which is and a tighter loop at east to west, all of it. Or like a chain, like a chain of beads, right? With
Yeah.
wider loop at the equator and tighter loop at the antiquators, like a chain of beads, but all of it flat, which is like that first picture that I showed of the two, not the Christmas tree one, but the one before. I was like this stuff, like I made all of this in like the first year. I was just like so much enjoying, like just whoa, what could it be? How could it technically work? What are the options of that which we are not certain about yet? Right? I mean, you don't know what you're gonna find, but what could it be? I love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is the case, like when you kind of look at all the map projections, like just in terms of that, like you have you know, the azimuthal, like the circle that's planar. Obviously you have the globe deal, and then these square layouts are pretty common. Those are kind of like the three main ones, you know. So it is interesting. And the whole AE map thing and whatever that's all about, and then the globe, which it's just not a globe, so that's just not what it is.
Yeah, I mean, no curvature. That's the end of that. Right? All you have to know is it's flat. So how does it work from that vantage point on? And that's what I've been trying to figure out.
So you're kind of suggesting that the AE map, going back to that for a second, you're kind of suggesting that the AE map was really like the blueprint, like the first one basically before the globe. Now I'm not saying I'm not saying it is the AE map or not, because you were suggesting the square, that they took the square, then put it into the AE, and then went, because I'm just going off what you had said with that. So I guess what I'm saying is that like in the let's say like from the conspiratorial deception, whoever the group is that's doing this, you're kind of suggesting that like the the AE map type thing was actually kind of like the grid that they used to then turn that into the sphere model, is what you were suggesting. And then
Yes.
and then if that's the case, that would kind of suggest that like on the kind of level of how it was sold to us, you know, in 2015, let's say, or, you know, in the recent era, and even in the Flat Earth Society before that, was already like a blueprinted deception that would already be like a backup deception to the globe deception.
I think that those specific map projections and the model, I think it was kind of leaked by the people that assembled it originally, and then was like found in archives, basically architectural archives of the design of the globe, the in-between stages. And that's what was sprung in the 2015 Flat Earth Awakening. That's what everybody hopped on board, because it was like the in-between step, and it could assist into creating an visualized complete self-containing model of which you could make a miniature, which would assist people in accepting a complete alternative to the globe. So they showed us the intermittent design that led to the globe.
Well, then if that was the case and that was like the backup deception, why wouldn't they, like, it seems like they want to suppress it right now. Like, why wouldn't they?
No, but don't you see?
Well, I mean, Will Duffy.
My
I mean,
version
doesn't it
is
seem like
too-
they won or
Yours is
whatever?
too
Like,
complicated.
not won, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they feel like, oh yeah, the flat Earth thing is pushed down. Rather than, I'm saying, if they wanted people in it, it seems like they'd more be like, oh yeah, dump into this. Come on, guys, yeah. Which I guess you could argue that they did that to a degree with all the
But they
content
show
stuff.
the intermittent model because that could work. If they just went on and like, hey, this is how we made it. It's a looping realm. The celestials have no actual location. And then we wrapped it around in a circle and then made it into a globe. Everybody would say, go fuck yourself. You're trying to deceive me, you stupid wizard. Nobody they can't get it. It's too much. They had to use the intermittent model or people just wouldn't have taken it.
So you're saying that if they did the globe thing, they would have to have a backup, basically, and it would probably obviously have to be a flat Earth, and then that's what they put together. They concocted that.
Yeah, they just took it one step back. That's all. Because the real thing is too complicated. We can't handle the truth. So they gave the thing in between.
As the backup, and then the globe as the main, pushing that as the real
the
one.
official story, and this is the intermittent design that is at least close enough to the globe that the common people can kind of wrap their head around it.
Well, what about like the idea that in the 1500s, like maybe you don't really trust that history or whatever, but like there were the Monty map, for example, that really high definition one. You know, those ones that have an AE layout that look like pretty old maps. What do you think of those?
It's a map projection, right? I mean, you're going to use a map, not a globe as a map, because a globe rolls around. It's not convenient. If you're going to use a map, then of course you're going to use the disk projection because you're using a flat surface that needs to contain all the surface in the realm.
Well, but
hold on, and all the explorers all use the celestial North Pole, right? They all use that as a point. So this is for navigation the easiest to use.
From the north going out, elevation angles, distances, yeah.
Except when you go southwards, but I mean, it's not like for actual logistics and trade. The southern part of the realm is not that interesting. It's all about the north part. That's where all the trade is. That's where all the money's made, right? The south, it doesn't really matter. So they just use this North Pole centric map. You could make a south centric map, but nobody would use it because what are you going to do there? There's nothing there.
All right. I mean, I'm understanding at least what you're saying. I'd have to think about that more. But like that one I just posted, that Monty map, that's supposed to be from the 1500s. So that's what your explanation would be. How a guy like that, you're saying he could have been actually mapping, or this could be a real map, but it's just that they're doing it all in North America, and then when they go south, I'm just trying to kind of steel man your point, but because I mean,
that's fine. It's just that
I guess what I'm saying, like, did ancient map makers
because of the navigation?
Well, are there any ancient maps then that show like a looping strip or like a looping, rectangular type? I was calling it a strip, but it's kind of like a, were there any ancient maps that show that?
I got something that sort of hints at it, but it's not really a map. It's more like an attempted drawing of the realm. I could share that. Really old.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, like, I guess you could also, people can make an argument and say, well, if you go off the mainstream history, they didn't have the vessels to be able to travel and map the whole Earth. And once we got to do that, we found out it was a globe. I mean, that's the story they're telling us. I don't think that's really what it is, but yeah, it's the story that they've
see this
put forth.
Oh, that's epic, Arwijn. I've seen that.
And it's real. I mean, you want to see a looping tunnel? Well, there you got one. Like, how else are you going to draw it, right? That's it. That's all you can do. Right? This is like a priest trying, like a high priest, really smart person of ancient times, trying to explain to a student what the realm is. Like, how the hell are you going to even try to attempt that? Well, this is how I would try to draw it if there was no other option.
Yeah, it's like the Earth is part of the entirety of the scenario, you know. So many people are trying to separate the Earth from the entirety of it when the Earth is more like the bottom floor of the whole thing, you know. So yeah, it makes sense.
Right. It's just the content of the space, of the realm space. The realm is really the volume in which matter exists. And the Earth is just the dirt that has settled within the available volume. And I mean, then there's the second part, right? How deep does it really go? What's at the end? Yeah. That's something we're
I mean,
probably gonna find out.
when you talk about how deep it goes, Arwen, it's actually very interesting because if it is super thick, I mean, Newtonian gravity can work out. You can make all of that math work with the super thickness of the Earth, dude.
That's hilarious. I doubt it though. I mean, mass has nothing to do with it. It like density theory is already like very to the point where you can consider it natural law. It's consistent at all places. So, I mean, Newton still uses like mass, which isn't even an actual physical thing. It's a mathematical extract of a physical thing, right? So, like, Newton's idea is like too mathematical to actually be physics.
Well, what about all the ancients? Sorry if you guys were on something slightly different because I kind of was away for a sec, but I had to reset my Discord thing.
Oh no, we're go.
Well, like a lot of the ancient conceptions, like in the ancient Vedics, for example, they have what they call Bhumandala, which is essentially like the earthly plane, the earthly realm that we're on, and within the Bhumandala, it's a planar surface, and it does have that concentric circle coming out from the center type of pattern. They don't necessarily depict the exact land. It's not like a map per se, but it's a cosmological structure, and it is like essentially like what I'm saying is that
You
pretty
mean
much
the
as
rings?
far as I know, like all of the ancient, including the Vedics, it's usually like a sphere that has a plane in the middle, and then it has the hemisphere above, as it were, the big massive dome. And then you also might have an apparent thing from an individual viewer, but you have, let's say, the huge massive top of the sphere, you have the plane in the middle, and then you have the bottom part of the sphere, the underworld, whatever's, the great oceans, etc. The cosmic egg. I'm just saying they seem to all depict it in that sense. So if it was a looping square grid realm, why wouldn't they, like, what would your explanation be there? Like they were wrong, or they're just not onto it, or they, because like it's pretty universal too in other ones as well that they had, like, in, the Mayans, the Aztecs, they all seem to have that as like and in the Vedics it's very specific because it's like the way it's laid out has to do with the layers and the heavens, and there's yeah. Akasha, which means ether basically in Sanskrit. So they have all the Akasha and all of the layers of that. So it's a very detailed, nuanced system. So I guess I'm just asking, like, how do you juxtapose some of those,
All right.
Yeah.
That's a fair enough question, but I mean, look, the Vedics, supposedly the most ancient old information is, you do realize that like they have been twisted. Like just look at what some of the older religious part actually makes people do. Like it's been twisted. It's been messed with. It's not in its original state. I think that basically the Jesuits came in, messed with it, forced a globe type depiction onto it. I don't think it was originally that they came in and they twisted it. That's what I think.
Well, like this one I'm posting kind of shows okay. You're saying that like not the globe deceivers, but some other deceivers twisted a bunch of the ancients into thinking this, or
No,
what?
the globe deceivers.
The same
Absolutely.
ones?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Why?
you're
No, but look, there's a logic behind this. Why would a globe deceiver give them another model? Because they just want them to discredit themselves. And how do you do that? By being wrong, right? But it has to then actually be wrong. So I think that they just forced them into this position so that everybody in the future would look at it and say, yeah, that's just wrong and it's just a globe. Right? If they'd left it exactly what it probably originally was, then people would intuitively like snap in it, like, whoa, this is it. Because it is real. And then ancient intuition jumps to it. Right? I mean, the actual original depictions are just missing. Except
well on
maybe
that front.
that one picture that I shared. I mean, that drawing, right? That's probably based on the original. I don't think that this Bhumandala thing is the original. I think that's what the Jesuits basically forced onto them.
So you think there were Jesuits back then?
Oh yeah. No, not
All right,
back
well-
then, because there is no back then. Back then is all not too long ago. And what was there is what was inherited, was founded, left by the ancients, picked up by the newer people that were left. And then the Jesuits basically came into being, decided we are going to mind control everything. And to do that, we have to destroy all knowledge of what really happened. And they went in everywhere and then distorted things and destroyed things.
Yeah, I never
And
know
then made
what
up a story
people
about
mean
how
by.
super ancient it was. Made up a fake history. And I think it really doesn't go much further back than like 500 years. Before that, there was nobody there that lived before that. Whoever they were, they're not there anymore, right? The six-fingered giants, all these beings. There's graves of them, but nobody's alive from that time to tell us what really happened. They just left a bunch of stuff for us to find and for the Jesuits to remove from our conscious.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could go a lot of like in the conversation. There could be some routes in terms of, history and was there a reset and how did we even get here? Because I mean, there could be an argument made. I'm not making it, but there could be a claim that could be said. Like the Vedics, let's say, is all just concocted by whoever and then just given to us today. So then that goes deeper though. Like, yeah, but is there a deeper resonance in that, than that? I'm not asserting that is what it is, but I'm just saying there could be like, oh, there was a reset and they just planted all this stuff from ground one, and did some kind of huge reset thing and brainwash everybody or did electroshock on everybody until
Not
they only had,
everything.
whatever, something crazy. But
Not everything, just these key things. Just the world overview things. Which is not that much. I mean, it's not like every freaking depiction in the world shows exactly the entire realm. Like, no, it's just a few depictions of that. That's the one they had to tinker with or destroy. And the rest, they just kind of leave it as is.
Arwijn.
Shut the fuck up, moron.
no, that is interesting. I hear what you're saying, but that is a lot to consider. That you're saying that even you're suggesting that all these ancient cosmologies are also like engineered in a similar way than the globe is. Because I don't really see it that way. I do think there's like an ancient lineage to humanity, like going back since the dawn of time.
I'm sure there
that
is. No, I'm not denying that. It's just the actual supposed events that happened in the very far past, I think that they have basically been made up. And there were really humans then, and they did leave all this stuff. But how that happened, it's withheld because they had another story, another history for us to learn that was based on evolution and a slow developing society progress. And it's all nonsense because that's not how it happened. And the civilization that we still find these ancient buildings from were way more architecturally advanced than we are now. So it's all just they did that and gave us a nonsense history of slow progress. It's just not real. There's only slow progress was right after the reset, right after what they call the mud flood, the big disaster that basically killed off everything or whatever there was, and then new people came forth. And they don't know where they came from. They could all have been incubated. I mean, the technology was there. This is a giant Tesla technology. It's incorporated in giant architecture that goes like kilometers deep underneath the mud. Right? It was super advanced, and I mean super advanced. Way beyond like how we build things now. This is all just like kiddie shit what we do. And we think we're like super advanced with the robots and shit. It's a bunch of toys, man.
I hear you, dude. As you were saying that, it is intense. I was thinking just in my own life about this whole globe paradigm, because we kind of think of it the way we do now, but I mean, how much has our consciousness changed? You know, like I know when I was a child, I never really fully bought into the globe. Like I never really would say I was convicted in it or anything, but I did generally accept it. And just that whole thing, like you were saying, of the slow evolution, and you're on this ball, and then the Big Bang and the outer space, and I mean, that was the whole entire story. It's just so wild to think like whatever consciousness is and how we're doing all this, that just and that was just being raised in the world we're in. I mean, I wasn't abnormal. Everybody was, that was it, and I wasn't even a big space guy or whatever anyways. I wasn't super like, into space anyway. I usually kind of thought it was all weird and kind of seemed like it could have been BS anyways. And I just, but nonetheless, like I was still in it. Like when I was 5 years old, 8 years old, I mean, you're seeing it in movies. You really think you're on this big ball going through space. It's really wild.
Right. Well, we're given the history as we're given the movies. And when we watch the movies, while we're watching it, we believe it's real. Even when you know it's not real, we still believe it, right? I mean, I know the earth is flat. When I watch Transformers from Michael Bay and they're on the moon, and all the Transformers are like in that movie, I believe it's real. Because I'm watching it. I know it's not real, but as I'm watching it, my suspense of disbelief makes me think it's real. And that's what they do with the history. They just give this to you. You don't get the alternative. And so you just believe it's real because you don't have an alternative.
Well, that's the thing, dude, about this whole globe paradigm. And I know they sell it the way they sell it. I don't necessarily agree with their history, but even if we just go from the 1800s until now, but I don't necessarily agree with their history, but I'm just saying, like, it's like we're in like a globe program in a way, like in consciousness. It's like a program of sorts. It could be said that way. Now, whether people see that as just deception, propaganda, and that's how it spreads, or whether there's something more immediate about that, like in the ether or the nature of consciousness or all, etc., in some way that we actually are tapping into something, even on that type scale as well, like into the actual time that we're in. But it's just like it's like there was some series of reset events, most likely, that led to whatever is now with the globe paradigm. The Rockefeller medicine, the JP Morgan, the Federal Reserve, the world wars, everything leading up, especially to today, seems to be like it's like they put a disc in the program system or whatever. And that took years to do, though. It took decades, really. I mean,
it took about a century to prepare it in the 19th century. And then they sprang on us in the 20th century, all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
20th century is when all the medicine crap came. It's when all the supposed space crap came. It's when all the evolution crap really was getting forced on us. It's developed in the 19th century, but like nobody gave this shit back then.
Yeah.
They thought, whatever, man. We're just living in this weird world in between these ancient buildings, and we're just trying to figure it out.
I know. What is that all about?
Now it's all programmed. There wasn't in the 19th. People were actually free-minded in the 19th century. And you can see that in the newspapers. Oh, newspapers? Yeah, because they inherited printing presses. Yeah, just like, oh, hey, we're born. Oh, we're figuring it out. Oh, like, oh, look, this guy went into the Tartarian building and he found this device and he figured out how it worked. You can print paper with this. Yeah, that's what happened. So we basically just took on the devices and the clothing and the culture of what was left.
Wait, Gio, you're not a young Earther, are you?
No. I don't think it's. I think it's been here for even maybe longer than even the mainstream says. And that's the question: is it eternal? Did it not even have a beginning? Is a whole
No,
other question.
can't be eternal. That's logically impossible. But we don't. It could be extremely old, but there's no way to find out. Like we can't find out.
Well, I heard you say you think it's relatively young. Arwin, how young do you think it is? You go by like Christian. I think Christians say like
No,
around
absolutely not.
6,000 years, right?
No, I don't know how old it is. It could be a freaking million years old. It could be, I don't know. It's definitely not super young. The point is, we can't find out.
So let me ask you this: so, like, in the idea of the general Tartarian, just as like you were saying, like whoever built a lot of these buildings and so on, like whatever that civilization was, and that whole, because there's clearly architecture that does not match the story we're told. So, in my viewpoint, so that's just already a fact. Now, what did you think their worldview was?
Wow. What do you think the worldview of a people of which none are alive was?
Yeah.
Well, well, there are technically records and inscriptions, even on like stone and all that, of which some of is left. I think that from what they put together, kind of, it seemed like a lot of them were actually sort of sun worshippers, but not in like the way that we understand it. They would just like really revere the energy of the sun. They probably lived off it since they really didn't need to eat. And on top of that, also just electrical energy, mana from the devices that that are in the buildings and everywhere. And
They didn't need
beyond
to eat, but they were
that,
human.
I don't even know like how what their typical procreation was like. I mean, they probably did like us, but maybe like they could. Just don't know. There's no records of this. Not that I know about, anyway. Like the total amount of information of what they were like, what their life was like, is very sporadic and mostly seems to be like almost mythological. It's just, I don't know, man.
It's been covered up and subverted, and
Well, look, a lot of stuff is found, but then it's also worked on by frickin' Freemasons that basically first work on it before they show it to the public. And so a lot of it we just never get to see. And then they use it secretly as an inspiration for their weird ass sci-fi movies. Right? That's how C3PO came to be.
I mean, do you
C3PO
think?
is actually based on a statue that was never openly revealed. Like he got to see that before it was locked off, and that's what he used to make C3PO the model for Star Wars. It's based on a statue. This is how they operate. This is what the Freemasons do. They get first pick. They get to see the real things that are not disclosed to the public. They can use it in their weird ass creations or propaganda secretly, and that's it. And
And then
nobody
they
else
have They have
can
the
see it.
connections or whatever. It's like a network with the connections that they have that they can be able
Right.
to interlink. In my understanding, like they were called free, or one of the roots of the word Freemason, the term Freemason, is because they were Masons and they were builders, and they had like free access between the territories. Like they could easily go in and out without having to like, have as strict of stringent guidelines in terms of that. So they were able to take, equipment for building because they were very desperate to get everything built out, that they had a certain group that were allowed to freely travel between the areas much quicker.
Right.
And then therefore, when they do that, now they're getting better deals, they're getting better connections, they're selling it more
Yes.
for here and buying it less for there, all that stuff. Yeah.
But also because they were actually the group that was like the only group that was actually specialized in analyzing and figuring out and dealing with ancient architecture. They were like the specialists to deal with it. But what they
Right.
didn't deal with
Oh,
it
right. Yeah,
for
of
the
course.
benefit of man. They just dealt with it with their own freaking benefit, and nobody ever knew because nobody else was dealing with it. And if you spilled the beans about it, you died. Right? That's where the whole ritual thing comes from. Don't freaking tell the secrets to the outside world. Well, Tartaria is a big part of that. Right? And I mean, this is not even all Freemasons. It's really like the higher class within it. Like not the hobbyists, the Boy Scout hobbyists, Freemasons. It's like the bigger guys, which are like the same group that also deal in state secrets and all that.
Yep. Yeah. And well, those are all interesting paths that could be gone down as well. But what I was like linking to in terms of the Tartaria situation, I was going to ask you like one thing, like, do you think, okay, whoever built these buildings, like if we just in a very generalized term, even if we don't use Tartaria, like there's, in my viewpoint, my understanding is that there is our particular architecture that seems to be at a foundation within our current era that does not match with the story they've told us. So I guess my question to you is like, were these the people who actually, or the entities that built all those buildings, as it were, and lived in them and all of that, were they human like us, or were they other than human? That's one question I had from before.
Well, they seem to be human, but they're like slightly different. You could argue that we're probably like a re-engineered or test tube created newer version of what they were. So they were like our predecessors in ways.
So
But
they repopulated the same the same world with like, in a way, like a degraded version of what we were in some
it
way.
seems so, yes. Like they were probably a lot more intellectually capable, much more long-lived, especially that part, healthier. They probably lived off energy, so they didn't even need to eat technically to survive. And
Well, that would explain why there's not evidence of all
whoever
kinds of
created what
farming.
happened, whoever took over, it seemed like they re-engineered us to be more like animals, to be more dependent on food, and they probably did that so that they could control us better and mind control us like by a select few. Because if you're that bright, if you're that long-lived, if you're that clear-minded, you can't be controlled by a select few. So that's probably the reason why they did that. And I mean, the ones that did that could have even been some of those old Tartarians that survived it. Who knows? I don't know exactly how it happened. People don't really know what happened. They just know these buildings were left, nobody's left alive from then, and it's all covered in mud. And that's about it. We don't really know what happened.
That's intense. And then we just have this footage of like in the 1800s of like dusty, empty streets with these, incredibly fantastic architecture, and then these people in kind of black clothing just kind of looking a little bit lost or just kind of wandering around. Like that doesn't seem to fit.
Yeah.
So
It's
very
because
strange.
they found it, right? They just moved it and it's like, whoa, look at all this old stuff. This looks incredible. Cool. I guess it's ours now.
Yeah, but why wouldn't we have that in our ancestry though? Like how recent do you think that happened? I guess that's a question. We're not like how many years are you estimating?
Recent what happened?
A transition from the whatever the old world with these different, what we're talking about versus what we are now. When did
So
that
you mean
transition?
when the mud flood happened?
Well, whenever the transition, yeah, you're saying it was a
It
mud flood and
seemed
then
to have
okay, yeah, it
happened
would be, yeah, in what you're
somewhere
saying.
it seemed to have happened somewhere in the 1700s or early, no wait, 1800s or very early 1900s. I mean, I might be getting it off. It's like somewhere before the 19th century, I think. Not that long ago. It's like around the time when it is claimed by the mainstream history that the Renaissance was. That's pretty much it. I mean, the founding fathers were like one of the new batches that just came out, just reemerged, and found everything. And then Freemasons, basically an organization among them, decided, okay, we're just going to claim that we built it. And then we're going to make up another history on top of that. So that we are the new kings of this new era, even though we basically just moved in and just found all of this. That's what I think roughly happened.
Wow. Well, then where did they come from when they? Okay, so that's
Yeah, that's the question.
Where did those humans come from? Because yeah, you're talking like, well, okay, the Renaissance they claim is what, like 14th to the 17th centuries, roughly. So I mean, is this what you're talking about? Kind of 500
I
years or
don't know
so?
exactly where they come from. It just humans kind of re-emerged around that time. I don't
Well,
know
because
how
if there
they
was the old
re-emerged.
world and
If
then
they were like bred in incubators and just kind of released. Like, yeah, you figure it out. You're the new people inheriting this world. It's probably something like that. How exactly where? I don't know, man. I
or
don't
have you thought about, this is a much darker thing, and this is pretty dark, but have you heard about the idea that, they like rounded everyone up, that was in the old world basically, killed off everyone they didn't want, and then, kept only the certain age children and the women, whatever, certain men, whatever it was that they kept, and, to be like the core group. And then they
could
did
be.
like massive, like MK Ultra level, who knows, electroshock to the brain, drugging, who knows what, to like basically wipe them and wipe all their history and all their memory and everything to the maximum degree and degrade them in
Right.
whatever ways. And I'm saying it's a very dark
Could
kind of
be.
theory.
It could
And
be.
then kind of reset us and then now put us back into these buildings, and we're like all like, we don't know who we are, where we are. We're like semi-retarded. Like, I mean, we're
Yeah,
not nearly as advanced as they were. We like, who are we? Where are we? Like, we don't even know. Like, people think the Earth's a globe. Like, they're all twisted up in the game.
that
But
actually
yeah,
that sounds horrible, but it makes a whole damn lot of sense. Actually, I haven't really occupied myself with that very specific part of how it happened, but yeah, you might be right on target with that. There are probably tons of people that suspect that that is how it happened. Sounds horrifying, but yeah, could be true.
it's pretty intense, dude, because when you think about, like, it does make a lot of sense, like in our even in our modern day today. Like, I know there's a lot that's gone on, but there's so much just like kind of trauma and disconnection and who are we, where are we? Like, why don't we just know? Well, anyways, and all the history, why is it all a debate? Like, history should just be history. Like, we should know what it, instead of like all this lost architecture and stuff. So yeah, there's definitely more going on.
Right. Well, we can't truly know who we are and what really happened because then it wouldn't work when we're lied to, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they took those old world people as advanced as they could, I mean, from just their architecture alone, to just be like, hey guys, so now actually the Earth's a globe, and we're going to sell you a bunch of a bunch of chemical poisons through Rockefeller medicine. We're going to poison your food and vaccinate your children. I mean, they never would have flown, So that's what's intense. Like, did they actually put us, put humans through some kind of a, well, then you get into the insane asylums and all of the asylums that were around back then, and how these asylums, they were using these old world architecture buildings as asylums where they were half asylum, half hospital. So what were they doing there? It was as an asylum and a hospital. So for your medical stuff. So yeah, that's
Reprogram,
pretty dark potentially. Yeah. So it's sort of like,
reprogram
if they're
them.
exactly, so if they're deprogramming them and then they test them after, who are you? What are your memories? And then only the ones that were total, wiped or whatever would be let through, and then the other ones would just go to the hospital to either be drugged or who knows what else. So, oof, or worse. So that is extremely intense. Yeah, that's very dark. Like that that would have gone down if that went down to that level. Like, can you, like, the old world people were just amazing, and then that happened? That is unbelievable. And then They use
Yeah.
the buildings to repopulate into these mind control centers. But then you look at the military and the school system, like, why does it all have that pattern? Training people and indoctrination and this like regimented control structure of bowing to authority. And I mean, the whole military is like completely built on that, and school is as well.
Yeah, it's indoctrination systems.
Yeah, which goes back to like
mean,
asylum, hospital, indoctrination, clearance check center, and then only the ones that got through that were fully wiped are who we are now. I mean, that is pretty wild if that is the case.
I mean, at this point, looking at how the world is functioning now, I am actually very non-surprised if it's exactly how you described it. Because people are capable of doing that to others.
Well, they've been doing it. I mean, even just MK Ultra that we know about. Yeah. So, well, yeah. Who only knows what else they might have? And that is a very dark realm. And then all the like children that are kidnapped, and if they have other land, if they're doing. I mean, I'm saying if the same entities are in control, whatever. If they did some kind of huge thing like that, if that's even a thing, then I'm just saying it's not like they stopped doing that to people. And that's the sad thing. They're probably still doing it today as we speak to who knows how many people, which is pretty sad and intense. If that's the case. I mean, this is all in the realm of speculation. I mean, I don't have any physical evidence for this, but
Well, okay. Well, Geo, all that indoctrination is now in public. You look at the internet and the way the kids are behaving, especially regarding to sexuality and their views on themselves. That's definitely, this is in the open now, isn't it?
well, yeah, I mean, who knows what they were doing in World War I and World War II, really? And who knows how many, whatever, if there is some kind of like a human trafficking thing going on. It's pretty dark and intense. Although, I mean, the level that these entities, I mean, even to consider what vaccines are is absolutely psychotic to the highest degree. And to think about concocting those chemicals and putting them into a tiny child's, infant's body. I'm not trying to shift to that topic. I'm just saying, like, that alone is so vile on so many levels, like that they would even do that. And just concocting them and actually wanting to concoct more of them and wanting to cause autism, for example, in children, stuff like this. That is absolutely insanely crazy that they're even doing that. So, I mean, that's already insane. And then we know MK Ultra is a thing that even, yeah, I mean, that's been like declassified, but I mean, I think there's probably a lot more that's gone on. And who knows if they were already that advanced doing that in the 60s, who knows what they were doing in World War II, World War One. They may have had this all along.
Yeah.
In various ways.
Actually.
They probably still use it on people like Britney Spears and Katy Perry, like when they're going to become, if they're pulling people from the populace, like not from their family line, it's very likely to me that they have some kind of a trauma-based mind control procedure that they do on them to fracture their soul, and then that's how actually I think demonic energy can take hold, is how they do it.
Well, I have heard
where
one
the
theory.
whole satanic Illuminati idea comes in, right?
Yep.
Well,
yeah, that word, yeah.
Like all these messed up dark rituals, what it does is it blanks you out. It forces your subconscious to blank out so that you don't get burdened by the load of being aware of all those horrific things. That's what removing your soul is. It's suppressing it.
Yep, I agree with that. And it also seems to, like, there's the idea of a fracture. And it's not really like it's not necessarily permanent, but it's like a part of the self gets split off and then replaced in a way by that trauma. And then, like you said, and then all the suppression of it. And then there's even the idea, like on a more spiritual level, is there something more going on? Because when you think about it, if somebody, let's say, okay, it's not pleasant to think about, but let's say you have a father and a son. And let's say the father is beating the son physically, let's say. You could say that like that father has some dark demonic energy that's beating the child, and then the child now is being traumatized by it. And then that demonic entity, when the child's in the trauma, the demonic energy, or if you see it as an entity or an energy, and I'm just using the word demonic in a very generalized sense, that energy can then come into that, it then comes into that child almost like an infection. And then now the child has a trauma. He may then repeat it when he grows up as an adult, unless he heals it and goes through it. So it's like dark energy that's able to transfer and like spread through the trauma. and it's trauma-based mind control as well. It's pretty deep.
It's a demonic spirit procreating over the generations. Yeah.
Yeah, and carrying forth. Yeah, and then all the GMO foods and everything else in our world now is like built on maintaining that and the birthing, how we're giving birth to, the birth trauma, all the drugs and anyways, yeah, things that happen at birth too. Yeah, it's really intense that that's all a thing. Like anyone, even from any spiritual perspective of what this realm is, like to consider that that was created on purpose is just pretty heavy to think about. It's just so dark.
Yeah, it makes me want to go back to just thinking about what the realm is, you know? Doesn't hurt so much. Think about that.
But why are we allowing the government to feed us their realm when we can create our own realm? Ridiculous.
Well, no, that's I hear you though. Yeah, I mean, whatever the darkest layers of reality be, yeah, it's like maybe taking a glance at it is one thing, but like shining the light at it continually. I mean, if you're shining the light and you're helping move it through, that's good. But yeah, I do hear what you're saying. Like those are some dark. I mean, anything like trauma-based mind control and stuff. That's obviously just like a very intense because that's like to the level of torture as well. I was thinking the other day, I saw some YouTube short on torture. Like, not that we have to go there either, but I mean, you guys think torture is real or is torture a psyop? I guess maybe I will say that, but we don't have to go all into it. But like, do you think people really torture others in those all those ways they claim, or is that all kind of, or is there any
Talking about the
information?
government or
Well,
just
maybe
regular
not
people?
all of it at the same time, but I mean, yeah.
You think people are that cruel?
Yeah, once you let go, you know, once there's no more you and it's just a demon, there's really no limit to how far evil can go. And if you're not that, then you just don't want to know. And that's part of its power. Power of evil is that it is so evil that nobody can handle it, and that way they maintain the monopoly.
Right. And then they have to go more all in to be on top kind of thing. So they have to keep going more and more. Yeah, to the next. It's like out of a movie in that way. Well, do you think let me ask you this. Do you think whatever entities are sort of behind, the globe deception and everything going on now, I don't know to what degree you think that goes, but do you think they're human or non-human?
No, they're spirits.
Like if there was the old world, the old world civilization, as it were, with the more advanced architecture, and then this whatever happened, whoever did that, if there was a reset of some sort or some kind of a disconnect, because anyways, I mean, there's a lot. That whole topic is a huge topic, but I'm just saying from that idea. Would the entities that carried that out, are they just other humans that were just like, hey, we're just going to take you guys over and do this? Or is there some other entity at play? Because if there was another entity, like another type of being, of course, some people talk about reptilian. There's different ideas and things, but like,
Yeah, no.
if there was something like that, doesn't it kind of like in a way make it a softer blow for humanity? It's like, okay, well, we're not really this insane. We're not this crazy. There actually is some, you know what I mean? Like some of us might be a bit crazy, but like this is to a diabolical level, and there is actually another entity involved.
Well, that's why people, even through religious tradition of all sorts and spirituality, separate the demon from the man. And that's why even Rudolf Steiner, like, it's a spirit. You could even compare it to like the whole idea of ring wraiths in the Lord of the Rings, right? They might have been human once. They're definitely not anymore. And they are immortal, and they just keep coming back until the ring is destroyed, that is.
Yeah, dude, the Lord of the Rings is pretty deep in terms of a lot of
Dude,
the themes around
it's
that.
one of the best mythologies of all time, in my opinion. Because it hits that depth of evil like nothing else.
I don't know if we want to go there in the convo or not, but I mean, just to touch on that for a minute, like, do you think Lord of the Rings, like, dude, I have a friend I went to grad school with, and she's like an actual like Lord of the Rings scholar, like and all of his work, and she has like an actual PhD in studying his work, and anyways, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But do you think that's like a real place in a way, like in another realm or in like a side realm? Like, do you think like basically do you think
No.
Middle Earth is a real place? I don't mean the movie
I think
description
that
of it.
Middle
Just
Earth. I think Middle Earth is Tolkien's vision of what it could have been like. It was his interpretation of all this information. Also, him learning about the real suppressed history. I think that this is like how he envisioned it could have been. That's what I
Interesting, yeah. With the and combining a lot of things with some brilliant writing and storytelling and character building, all those factors too. Yeah,
Yeah, and also really showing, right, the elves go away to the undying lands. It's sort of metaphorical. Like the elves are like the Tartarians, the ancient ones with that live forever, are super brilliant, different. And like, yeah. And they go away, and then the humans and the rest inherit it together with what's left of the evil and the orcs and all that. So that's what I think it is. It's metaphorical mythology of what Tolkien envisioned it could have been like, incorporating the actual spiritual esoterics of the entire struggle.
yep, yeah. Wow. Well, do you know in his writings that there's something like he originally was saying that they thought the Earth actually was flat, was a plane, and then there was like a transgression. There was like a transgression that occurred, which
Yeah,
then sort of
I heard
became a
that.
ball. Yeah, like in the minds.
Weird.
Yeah.
Fascinating. But it's not just like thought. No, he actually stated that it's literally changed shape. Like there's a dimensional transition of physical reality change. It's really weird.
Well, I mentioned flat Earth to the person I was mentioning. I told you that has a PhD in like Tolkien's work in a sense, and I told her I mentioned flat Earth to her. This was years ago, um, and I just kind of we were at like a public party. There's like a bunch of people. We were all hanging out, so it was sort of like it wasn't like a more longer conversation. It was a lot of other people talking at the same time, but yeah, I kind of had told her because this must have been back in like 2016 or 17 or something. So I kind of just mentioned flat Earth to her, and then she responded back with and was telling me about that. She's like, "Wow, it's really interesting because in Tolkien's work, like, yeah." And then of course, like Middle Earth pretty much is planar, right? Like, there's no indication of any globular or any space to that realm that
No, it's
either.
just a flat map. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's the realm of that book. It's not even complete. Like it just doesn't tell you. It's like, oh, the undying lands. It's over there. But I mean, it's not really. It doesn't give the full picture. It leaves it open. Like even in Tolkien's realm, there could be more land. It's just not addressed. You just don't know. It's left open. Which is very wise to do, by the way. I mean, if he'd actually set some kind of fixed, complete cosmogony for the realm, that could have like screwed up everything. It'd just be super distracting. So, but yeah, that whole weird warping of the nature of the realm into that globe, that was really weird. It's almost like, are you sure you needed to do that, Tolkien? But I guess he felt he needed to do that. I can even make it even weirder with absolute pure speculation that I'm making up. So not saying this is real, but Tolkien could have literally dived into actual ancient writings from Tartaria that have never been revealed and basically used that as a blueprint for creating the entire idea of it.
That's pretty much what I've always thought is the case. Yeah, dude, that just lit me up when you said that because yeah, it was well said. Yeah, and I think with Tesla as well. I think Tesla had some that was left over. That's why he was Tesla. Perhaps his family somehow either
Tesla
maintained.
just wanted to recreate that technology. He
Yeah,
figured it out, and then he just like, let's do this,
and he had some money to do it. Yeah.
Like, nope,
But
that's
yeah,
not going to make us money.
no, I'm just saying. I think he like just drawing the parallel. I think potentially he also had some of the original. Yeah, if we're going to use the term Tartarian, or the old world information. But yeah, what you just said about Tolkien, dude, that is so interesting because like I think things
It's
like
just an
within
idea.
like
I just came up with that. I'm not saying that that's what I've always thought, or it's just like, yeah, in the face of the entire conversation, that could have actually happened. Like, who's to tell? He didn't leave any notes.
yeah, well, and also like his the years that he lived uh were interesting in terms of like yeah, basically the kind of early 1900s. Looks, I guess he died in 73, but it just seems like there is something so much more like ancient and resonant about those movies in particular because there's a lot of movies out there now. I mean, yes, they're very well done and like and there is actually a lot of the kind of old world architecture actually in a lot of those movies, but there's
He
some kind of
designed the
like
whole language there, right? So where
yeah,
did he get that from? Like, how did
I
he
know.
even come up with doing that?
That's what I'm saying. Is it all just the work of one man's mind, or is something else going on? That's the and then the resonance of it.
No,
Like
I
there's
think
something
he
like
did
epic.
actually
Like when
design
you
it all
watch
from
those movies.
scratch.
Well, hold
I
on. When you
think he
watch
did.
those movies, like there's something like epic and like ancient about them. Different than Star Wars or something.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Is
apologize.
Ritzky live by accident? What's going on here?
Sorry, Arwen. Go ahead, bro. I kind of powered through because I just wanted to say that one thing. But go ahead. No, I think he's. Yeah,
No,
you're sharing your camera, Tarek. Yeah, you got it.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, I don't think like Tolkien ripped anything literally. I think that he read like a super ancient history thing, and then he just used that as like a structure, right? A structure
To
on
write to
how
write a
to
story on
create his
top of it.
own world. I do think he like designed every part of it. I mean, just read like the fine detail of the descriptions of like the clothes of the elves. I mean, like that's him being super inspired. He didn't rip that, but he probably has studied those ancient materials that also had all that detail. So the depth of the detail is an indication that he has been inspired by something. But it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
he copied it like a bunch of Chinese or something.
Right. Right. It's like this in a different way, but so it's a different topic, but I'll just say very briefly. But there's a guy named Stanislav Grof who was like Albert Hoffman who discovered LSD. They call him the father of LSD, but Albert Hoffman calls Stan Grof the godfather of LSD. In a way. And so there is a very deep connection between them. Anyways, he's a legendary individual, but I only draw the parallel to say that he was giving people like thousands of people, high doses of LSD and the therapeutic and the effects on the human psyche and everything else. And all I'm saying is that in his writings, sometimes I'm like, wow, this is just, but then I realize I'm like, no, it's basically like coming, like he's reporting what the people are experiencing and they're on a high dose of LSD, just fully, opening up to many, many things. And so it's just in a similar way. It's like what he's saying, you would think like, oh my gosh, this guy is like beyond but then it's like, okay, well, he's actually just, what he's doing is just articulately, documenting essentially what the human mind, the depths of the human unconscious and subconscious and the very, very deep energies that are in the human unconscious, which LSD seems to have a capacity to open the doors to. It's sort of like you have your waking state in which your unconscious is suppressed and then things are still affecting you, but it's suppressed. Then you have your sleeping where somewhat of the unconscious is open, but you never really are like waking with your unconscious wide open, which is pretty much what LSD does. And so I'm just saying, I've just drawn the parallel to say that like he was just documenting when it's like in some of his writings, it's like, wow, this is like beyond him, but it is
Right.
beyond him because it's like the
Well,
human psyche. Yeah.
I call that opening up the depths of the spirit, because like physically there's limitation, but spiritually the depths of it, there's no limitation. Just like there's no limitation to possibilities of evil, there's no limitation to the depths of where the spirit can go and how deep it goes. It's like an infinite rabbit hole, basically, spiritually, exclusively. So yeah, and indeed psychedelics can open that up and just blow your mind more and more and more until something snaps or you stop.
Yeah, there's the ego death points. Well, that's what he found, is that when people were doing this, they would reach these just sequences of death and rebirth on multiple layers and levels, even getting to the point of getting to the memories of their birth, of their actual life, their actual memories of the birth itself on a cellular level, not really like thinking memories, but a cellular. And a lot of people, that's where like depression and anxiety is actually in the birth itself, because the mother was contracted and keeping too much pressure, and then the
Right.
child was suffocating,
Resonance.
and then and the birth was not a healthy one or whatever, and all the drugs and then anesthesia and then inducing and all the stuff they do now. But
Yeah, and then it gets imprinted on the time cycle, which spiritually echoes. And that's
well, that
how
would be the next
trauma
thing, because
procreates.
what
That's how
people
trauma like echoes, right? That's why it comes back cyclically. And that includes with like extreme trauma. That's how the demon procreates. You could say the demon is the trauma, or what comes out of the trauma. It is a cyclical spiritual event. That's how that works in
yeah,
psyche.
and you get, it's like an alcohol, when someone's an alcoholic, and it's like like a demon, kind of thing, or some kind of dark energy.
Yeah, that keeps reemerging, and then it's like
Yeah.
it does damage. It goes away. Oh, the innocent person come back. And it's like, oh, it's okay. And then suddenly, it's slowly the darkness slips back in until everything goes, and then they get completely demonic again, do more damage, and then they snap out of it. And and it never ends. It's horrifying, by the way.
Yeah, so like I mean, I was just gonna say, like, what Stangroff basically discovered with giving that many thousands of people LSD, and many of them multiple times at high doses, is there's like three main realms of what he called like of the human mind. The one is the biographical, which is like everything after you were born, so any events or anything that happened after you were born. And then there's the birth, like the actual coming into the world and the birth. And then the third one he calls transpersonal, which that there is a thing called transpersonal psychology. He actually was one of the ones who initiated that transpersonal psychology. And there are graduate schools and places where, I mean,
You mean
transpersonal psychology is a field that you can get
you
official
mean
degrees in.
pre-birth, post-death?
Yeah, so basically three layers, like the biographical of this life, the birth of this life, and then what he calls transpersonal. Trans meaning beyond, so beyond the personal. So basically, like, people tap into like past lifetimes, they tap into racial memories, archetypal memories, all kinds of like all these realms
Right.
that are
I call that the dark world.
other dimensions,
Yeah,
things like this.
that's what I call the dark world. It's the exclusive spiritual realm from which we came, what we go back to, where all our previous incarnations are all connected, but only
Yeah.
in that way, not in the incarnated way. It's like there is your other self that is eternal, that reconnects, where you can get
Are
all the memories of past lives and even of the future, but it's not really you. It's the other side you.
are
Well, I think of it as like if you have like the trunk of the tree, that let's say
okay.
that's your soul, and then you have like branches going off, would be like maybe the idea of one branch would be like an incarnation, but then like you have the center, because I feel like that is where our actual home is. Like I feel like I'm an extension of my soul being here, and the actual like like I don't think I came from there. I think I'm there at the same time, like
Right. We're
simultaneously.
like the flower of the plant.
Is that the springboard for transgenderism?
No.
No, transpersonal has nothing to do with transgender. It's unfortunate that I guess whatever transgender now, because that's a thing, has altered now when if I say the word transpersonal. Before the transgender thing, it was nobody would have thought that. Now it's like no, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with all experiences and content that is beyond the individual personal self. So if you have like your personal memories from childhood, this happened to you, that happened to you, you have your birth. And then other than that, basically in a sense, there seems to be just a massive, endless reservoir, really what Arwen's saying, of material that is.
A better way to say it would be pre and post incarnation, because it's really about the incarnation, right? The spirit in the flesh, that's the incarnation, that's our life. But there is something before and after that. So it's pre and post incarnation would be a better way to say it.
Yeah. Yep. So it's pretty interesting. And then in terms of like what happens with people when they process things within them, like there's usually layers in sometimes one or more of those three layers. So like, and they all link together is what he found too. So like, let's say somebody takes LSD and then they're feeling like they're suffocating, and even though they're not physically suffocating, but they feel like they are, and they're kind of shaking a little bit. And then what they realize is let's say they start reliving a memory where when they were a child, their brother had this arm around his neck and he passed out or something, or almost cut off his air. That's from like the biographical life. Maybe earlier, when he was a child, he was swimming in a pool and he
imprint.
Almost suffocated, the imprint there. Yeah. And then at birth, maybe there was the umbilical cord around the neck. So there's a connection there. And then in a past life, he finds that he connects with a memory where he was hung in a past life. And then by linking all of those together, and maybe all that was coming through as, he had depression or anxiety or some issue, you know what I'm saying? And often it's in all three layers and getting all the way like, biographical, birth, perinatal, or the birth, and then the transpersonal, as it were. So like, in this case, like I was saying, like in that example.
Well, that, yes, like an echo of past lives. But I mean, it's basically when you do that, you're finding the imprint that causes, like they experience the symptoms of the echo of
the trauma
original imprint. And that's
right.
The trauma is like an echo of an original imprint, but you don't have to know what the original imprint is. Actually, it's easier for the mind to just re-experience the trauma than to go to the source. You naturally psychologically avoid it. It's like escapism that does that.
Yeah, but dude, I think it's like what I've always referred to them and experienced them, and many others that I've been worked with over the years in these communities and things, like it's like unconscious resistances, because like when I've done like various it's like they're unconscious, like you can't necessarily just think them away. Yeah, there's like it's experiential, like it's actually it's much deeper than just something that you could logically think your way out of.
It's the incarnated gatekeeper. It's the subconscious is like a gatekeeper that prevents the totality of the full post and pre-incarnated information on the other side to be lodged into your time-bound conscious experience, because what we are it does not seem to be designed to handle the totality. Like our existence is like a isolated separation of the totality as an experience. And so the subconscious seems logically just gatekeeping us, protecting us from the totality of the information that we are not designed to handle.
Dude, that's pretty deep right there. Yeah. Wow. How you said that. Yeah. That's intense. Yeah. It's like well, yeah, there is like a resistance. Like we all have like, like a governor, which is something you can put on like an engine, like a motor, like on a boat or something, like an outboard boat engine. You can go full speed, but if you like, you can put what's called a governor on it, which basically just limits the carburetor, it's there's a different type. And then that way you can only go like 80% of full speed. You can't go 100% or 70, whatever you set it at. So yeah, it's like we're just being governed by, and I don't mean the government, but it's like we all have a governor. Our consciousness is a governor from everything else that exists to what we are now. We're just like zapped into a time spatial.
No, it's not a governor. No, we are the subject. The subconscious is the governor. It has the full picture, and it is withholding that full picture from the recipient that is our conscious existence.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah. Well, I just mean, well, we're being governed. Yeah, like we're not the governor, but yeah, we're being governed in some way
Right, and
by
once you
probably our
realize
own
that,
consciousness.
you don't need a government anymore. The government is really there for the people that don't accept that they have a government. They are the government. Their subconscious is their government. And when you can't handle that, then you leave it to another to govern you.
Well, doesn't government have to do with like govern the mind, the mental?
Yes.
So yeah, yep.
I can tell you this story. Now in Australia, you would find a regular post box, and in some locations you would find a brown undescript post box beside it. I always knew it was some type of government fucking thing. So someone looked it up on Chat GTP last night, and they said in Australia they used to use brown post boxes to transmit government information. But obviously now they've been removed with the advent of technology and cryptic messaging and email. So very interesting.
All right. Well, that's very off topic.
Yeah, no, it's actually on topic regarding like the way government operates.
Well, we weren't really talking about that at all. We were talking about a little bit of that, I guess, for 2 seconds. Not really that, but he just mentioned government and that we're in terms of what that actually goes down to, and then the idea of like governing in our consciousness. Well, Arwin, let me ask you this from what we were saying before. So, what about people like, all right, so there's people that have had for example, a case like a man had like severe back pain, and he had been to doctors all over the place, had spent tons of money. The doctors could not figure out what it was. It was just this unexplained back pain that he had his whole life, and there was nothing physical they could ever find. And then he was doing some of this deeper work with, let's if we use. Because you can do a lot. You can use breathing, actually. You can just do breath work. You don't have to even consume anything. But, I mean, LSD, like we were talking about, is kind of like semi-synthetic. So it's kind of, it's not really natural. But, I mean, you
It's
could
just refined psychotropics.
Yeah, exactly. You can use plants or you can use breathing. There's all these different techniques. But what I'm saying is that he ended up, like in this example, he ended up doing a lot of of this deeper unconscious work, like we're talking about, where the governor is released and you're able to get into these mind states where you can then access these things. So he was able to access it, and for him, it was rooted in a memory that he connected to, where in a past life he was stabbed in the back by a sword, and it killed him. So once he processed that past life memory, the pain went away and was completely resolved. So how is that trauma?
That's the thing. I've heard a lot of those stories. I've worked like in the past, like in my 20s, I was really into this sort of thing, in healing and all that. I can do things myself. Like I can lay on hands and all that. I use it mostly on myself because other people don't really seem to want it. It works great though. But yeah, I know all about that. Like it sounds kind of silly on the surface, like, oh, it's a past life trauma. But I mean, it works though. And like you said, like once you figure it out and you face it, it can just go away. It rarely doesn't go away when you do. So you can't, that doesn't make it like scientifically provable, but I mean, it structurally works like that.
Well, and I hear you on that, but even outside of like a theoretical or speculation, I'm also, what I was saying too, is actually like direct. Now, you could say it's people's experiences. So, like that time, what I just said there, oh, he connected with a past life memory that he was stabbed in the back, this and that. Well, some people would write that off and say, oh, well, that's just in his mind, or he's just dreaming, or he's just kind of thinking things. And then maybe, but I guess you could try to say it's a coincidence. But I guess what I'm getting at, like, I'm pulling that from the human psyche, basically, like people's experiences, because there's like, who knows how many millions at this point of people that have had these experiences that are so potent to the point to where, however you want to take it, what they claim when they come out of the experience is XYZ, oh, I connected with this past life and this, and etc. Or they, they even saw what they looked like, or they saw the environment. I mean, there's different ways it's experienced. And then and sometimes their body, like they actually feel like they're being, like in that case, like a sword went through his back. He might even feel what that feels like again, like in the experience, because it needs to be moved through. It's like, oh, you were saying, like when it's so overwhelming, it's like the emotions have never even been experienced, so it's not really reliving it, it's actually living the emotions for the first time that were suppressed at the time of the trauma. So you're actually living these repressed emotions. That's why you might cry, or you might shake, or you might feel whatever.
Because
Yeah,
it's like it's the
emoting.
it's like the homework you just keep postponing, right? And then like you
Yeah,
don't fix it,
like
and then you're fucked, but then you feel super bad. But when then you do it after all, then that resolves. It's like kind of like that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it seems like it's like once the kind of sequence is played out, I mean, the way I kind of think of it, it's almost like we have like an inner healer. Like there's that idea of an inner healer, and that's what Stan Groff kind of had phrased it as well. So there's like kind of like an intelligence within us that seems to just know what to do. I don't know, we don't even really know how it does actually, maybe like how does it actually know? But it seems like when you activate these specific states of consciousness, which I mean, breathing, certain meditation, if you're really good at it, you can get there. Possibly lucid dreaming, like the flotation tanks, like sensory deprivation or sensory
Right.
isolation can do it. None of those are consuming anything. And then of course you have all the plants and all the other substances and things that can do it as well. But I'm specifically talking about those. Like I'm not talking about heroin or anything, just specifically like,
Yeah.
psychedelics, entheogens, etc. that can bring these experiences. And then it's, I'm just saying, like when people have the experience, and then when it's just wild, because it's almost like a lot of what people experience with past lives is the death of those lives as well, like the pain of the death. And it's sort of like there's like residue in the soul, perhaps, that seems to like, transfer over. And
Right, it just becomes part of the
and the thing
tape.
about, well, this is the last thing about the inner healer. I know I kind of want. Oh, just the last thing about the inner healer. It just seems like when you use any of those things, the substances, any of those methods, substance or non-substance, if you activate it powerfully enough, it's like your psyche, especially if your eyes are closed and you're intending. I mean, if you're at a party and your eyes are open, maybe not. I mean, that's a little different. But if you're closing your eyes and intention of going within, it's like sequences will unfold that seem to almost like before you, like you're not even in control of it in some cases. Like especially if it's like a high dose of ayahuasca or something, you might be seeing visions and kind of
Yeah,
taking
I
things
get it.
in.
But there's a good reason for that, and you got to think back again. There's no depths to the evil, and there's also no limits to the depths of the spirit in general and their power there. So, practically, like mathematically almost, spiritually, we are gods, but only spiritually. You could argue our conscious is just a fragment of God in that sense, philosophically. So, if you then open up to the depths of that, the capabilities will resonate with the depths of the power. So to me it makes perfect sense. I mean, if we're like basically gods on the other side, technically, not like ontologically like we created it, but like the depths of our power, then you shouldn't be surprised if we have that kind of depths of power within our spirit, that if you then access it, that such incredible things are just natural powers. To me, it makes sense.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, this entire realm is, it's unbelievable what's even occurring. Like, how do you just make physical matter, for example? I mean, it really is inconceivable to a human mind of how that even can exist.
Yeah. Well, then you get to the depths of like the creator God, which is beyond any of us.
Right. Then you have that, like the
That's
source of it all.
That's the real original God. I mean, we are like spiritually, we're gods, but I mean, it's always going to be little g. But I mean, even that compared to our incarnated life experience, that's just unbelievable. How far that goes. And you can find such things into like the depth of inspiration that artists can have and writers. It's like just unbelievable what can come out of them. Because they got it from the spirit realm, and there is no limit there. The limit is only what you impose upon yourself.
Wow, that's well said. Yeah, there's a lot of music that it does seem
Yeah,
limitless.
music and writing. I mean, Tolkien's world. I mean, this is just unbelievable. It's so incredible. And sometimes, like I've been game mastering with like Dungeons and Dragons, or quite a bit. It's been a while since 2020 it ended, but I've been doing that, and I mean, the things that would come out of me as like improvised game mastering, which is really like a lifetime story simulation, where you have to throw out hints and you don't even know what that's about yet, but you've already decided that eventually it is going to be about something, but you still are in the way of process of figuring it out, right? Well, what would come out of all that? And then at the end of it, I would be like, holy shit, this is so epic what it turned out to be. I didn't know that when I started this. It's just incredible how that works. And it's all because of the spirit, because that's where it came from. Share the spiritual experience, a simulation in our mind that we collectively share. There's rules. I'm the one that decides how it goes. They accept it. And then they work with what they can get, which can be incredible still. They can do incredible things in there. Very satisfying. Then we agree upon that spiritually, and then you just go. You run it like a computer program that's like collectively exists in our specific imagination, collectively. And like it works. And just what can come out of it is just unbelievable. Like you come up with things, and that at the end of it, when it's fully shaped, you're like astounded by what it became and how awesome it is.
Dude, that is very deep what you're saying. Yeah, that resonates in a lot of levels with me, with what you're saying, and my thoughts on things in a lot of ways. So would that even go like are you saying like to a degree like okay the question of the impetus for creation, like why create, why do all this? Do you think that could be one of like that basically forgetting who we are, what we are to such a degree where we're limited, like you said, then there's rules and the way like holograms, like in holography, the part and the whole are actually one. The part and the whole, the whole is contained in the part is contained in the whole. So in that way, like there would be perhaps with us, like the part that is us actually does contain the whole
Right,
on a
fractal
deeper
infinite.
level. Yep, fractally, and beyond that, the limitations of what we can experience. Yeah, like
Right. Well, look, you could look at this like this. If there's so much infinite things that we can experience and make up and then still get something out of it, it makes sense if you think of it like this. And I'm not saying it is like this, but what if on the other side, we're actually every person that has ever existed? And we just go through this endless person from one to the other, from one to the other, until like all of them. And we don't know where it begins and we don't know where it ends, but we've been everybody. Then it makes sense, because then when you tap into that spirit, you're basically tapping into all experiences that have ever existed. And then everything can resonate with you.
yeah, and everything, and that would mean it's all within you. Because like what I'm saying with all
Yeah.
this, like I don't think it's just like some special boys have this. Like we all do. We all have
No,
this.
no, no.
within us,
It
you know?
literally means we're all equal. We're all equally God. And nobody's more than another. That's what that would imply.
Or yeah.
We're all
Well,
one,
and then we
man.
all have this. We all have this within us. Yeah, it's not like just some special ones do, and then everyone else has to just follow the other ones who have it or something, which is what goes
Right.
on in
And
a
I
lot of
mean,
religions.
most people, when they do this sort of thing, they can figure out, oh, I had this previous lives, a couple of previous lives, right? Well, what if you could zoom out even further and further until you basically start to catch on, I've been everyone? You don't know if that's possible. And maybe if you do that, you can't come back and you literally just die or something. Who
I don't
knows?
believe it's possible.
Well, let me ask you this though, like as a refinement of that. So if you okay, there's one idea that let's say you have the source of everything, whatever that is, the source of all. And if we then were separated from that or created into this fractal part, a separate part, and then now let's say we're a soul, if we use that word. So there's like the great spirit, and then there would be like the soul, and then let's say we were created as a soul. Arwyn, do you see it as like, okay, then let's say my soul would, or your soul, whatever it was, would go through only some lives, like maybe 500 or 1,000 or whatever it is, in this realm, and then maybe another 1,000 in another realm. I mean, it could be infinite how many there are.
Who
But I'm
knows,
saying
man?
like that you only live those lives, and then when you get back, and then once you've gone through the whole thing and you get back to the source, then you can experience everyone's life. But or do you think that our soul, as it were, or do you resonate with any of that, and that we actually will live each other person's life as our own soul? Because it seems
It's
like
a
the body has
theoretical
a
question
soul.
that can never be answered, but we can only speculate, right? Well, look, I don't think there's other realms. Well, I think there's not another there's not like parallel dimensions like that with infinite worlds. There is this physical realm, and it's the only physical realm, however big it is, which could be pretty damn big. I don't know. But here's the other thing, and that gets really complicated. There's spiritual realms. And I suspect there is no limit to the amount of spiritual realms, as there's no limit to the spirit. That makes perfect sense. So, right, we might live lives or what seems like lives that are not physical outside of our physical experience lives. And
Yep. There's
so,
people that
yeah,
report that. There's people that report connecting with that being a thing. Yeah, that there's like so like one of the way people describe it is that like when you die, you go to like what could be called like the human spirit world, like a particular kind of like like a train station. I mean, it's not an actual train station, but a pit stop as it were. But that's not like the end goal. But that's actually just like a transfer point basically, or
that's
it's
the
a whole
shadow realm. That's the
in
intermittent plane or the
which you then
spiritual
can go to
intermittent
other
plane.
one. You then could go to another spirit world of another realm, and then that realm might even have a physical thing to incarnate into, or maybe not. Maybe it has something
Yeah,
different. But then
we
you
don't
could
know.
go to
That's
different
the
ones.
thing. We don't know. But I mean, when you think of it like this, look into the D&D cosmology because that's exactly what it is. Yeah, the D&D cosmology has one terrestrial plane.
You're just
And
making
then
up
there
theories.
are
Now.
transitory planes, the shadow realm, the ethereal
These are
realm, which are like
theories.
can you please not interrupt? That are in between. And then there are the outer planes. But the outer planes, which like includes Hades and hell and like Mechanus, all these weird, like tons and tons of places. Those are non-material plane places that are kind of material plane. That's how we experience them, but they're not. And like the mechanics there, where the physics work differently per plane, it's very strange. And every plane there has like its own god that literally rules over the mechanics and how it works. And when something happens to those gods, something happens to those planes. That's how it works in D&D. It's very close to what we've just been speculating about. I always found that incredibly fascinating about Dungeons and Dragons.
That it's a fractal in and of itself.
Think of it like this: there's the central physical realm, the terrestrial realm that is
Middle
connected
Earth.
intermittent spiritual planes, and then beyond are the non-physical realms, of which there are like abundant, and they're all extremely weird, and they're different than the material realm. There's no god of the material realm, but all the gods that basically rule over their own spiritual realms can interact and like have priests that are in the physical realm and that way influence it. And that's how the D&D's cosmology works.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Inception for some reason a little bit there. There's like some
A little bit, yeah. It is, but I mean, Inception, dude. Dungeon Dragons is old.
Yeah.
And then you can think of like, how the hell did they come up with it? Did they read into some Tartarian spiritual cosmology and then made a game out of it? Who knows?
So do you think this is the only like what we call physical with, water, mountains, etc. Do you think this is the only one of these, or do you think
Yes.
in these that there's other ones of these?
Now this seems to be, and this is like, yeah, I mean, it's not scientific but I had communication with spirits and mediums, and I kept asking that question. I literally have a record of it even on a CD somewhere, but they basically said, no, this is the only material plane. So the spirits out there seem to confirm there's only one material realm, but there's like tons of spiritual realms. And that you can find that back even like in Rudolf Steiner's descriptions and all that. He also confirms that.
Well, this is a much deeper. I love Rudolf Steiner's work. I went to a really unique graduate school, and I was able to study Rudolf Steiner's work and a lot of other amazing work in that time. And one of the professors at the school actually is he's like kind of like a world renowned scholar of his work, of Stuart Steiner's work. Like he's written a lot of the compilations and all of that, like all in terms of all of that as well. So so I definitely have a deep resonance and appreciation for Rudolf Steiner and his work. Well,
I
let me
do.
ask.
Rudolf Steiner blew my mind. I had a experience when I first heard somebody read from a book from Rudolf Steiner, literally like quoting him. Like how old was I? 8, I think. It was in a Waldorf school, but it's like at some point actually somebody read it, and I was like jumping up, like that's me. It's like I'm literally listening to myself. Like that's my first response when I heard Rudolf Steiner, like his actual words. Like, holy shit! It's like that's me saying that. I'm saying that. I've said this. I recognize this every part. I get every part, and I don't know why. I'm freaking 8. That was
Yeah.
my first experience with Rudolf Steiner.
Wow, that's pretty cool, dude. That's pretty unique.
That was epic.
Quite a resonance.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody else freaked out about it, but I mean, I'm like, I'll never forget that. And now when I read him, it's kind of different. I've like more matured into my current incarnation, so it doesn't really feel like that. And when I read him now, often it's like, holy shit, that guy's kind of autistic.
I would say
He's
kind of more like a
really
savant. He was more.
mechanical in
He
his
was.
thinking all the time, and he's like, the way he describes things is kind of autistic.
Well, I
It's
would
just
say,
like,
maybe like a savant more than autism. Maybe I would say, but there are types
yeah,
of
but you know
autism
what
that
I
has
mean,
savant
right?
qualities. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
structured in that way.
yeah. It's sort of obtuse, but
Yeah,
obtuse in a way that makes it deeper because it splits the information up in a way that's maybe not as like flowing to the ear as might be from some perfectly worded thing versus
it's
like
it's
the
structurally
technicalities.
rigid. It's
Yeah.
structurally rigid and consistent, almost to a neurotic level. But about the spiritual, right? Most autists are actually tend to be in denial of the spiritual, and that's what like a complete opposite with this, because it is all about the spiritual. But the way he describes it just seems like so rigid and structural. It's like that's like an autist describing the spiritual. It's kind of hilarious, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, I just looked. He has a Mercury square Saturn in his birth chart. So, yeah, that would definitely fit with that structured, extreme structure. Because Mercury is writing, the actual writing, and then Saturn is the, very detailed in the structural compounds of that, and the rigidity like rigidity is a Saturnian thing as well. Anyways, it's kind of a side thing, but I just looked because I wanted to see if he had the Mercury Saturn, which he does. It's pretty exact too. It's like almost exactly 90 degrees. But yeah, that would fit that. Well, well, this is, I mean, definitely Rudolf Steiner is like, and that was interesting what you shared. So if you want to continue on that, I know I keep saying that, but it's like I'm not trying to shut that topic down. But I was going to ask before, just before it loses my track of mind, because when we were talking about like everything. So in terms of your idea, like let's say like the idea of the source or the creator, as it were, or that kind of source of everything. The questions is like, okay, where did that come from? Why does it exist? Can it go anywhere else? Can it do anything else? You know, if you're saying it only created this physical realm, the spiritual world, is that just it? And then, yeah, where does it come from? Why does it exist? Those are my questions.
So you're asking, where did God come from? Why did he create everything?
Pretty much. Just good old base.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be the first to tell you, like, yeah, we don't know. I mean,
we just don't know at this time of consciousness. Yeah, at least in total.
But because, I mean, we can barely handle the truth of our own spirit depth. So why would you assume that you'd be able to handle like the meaning of all of it? Right? Other than, hey, we're just limited just so we can experience the endlessness from a limited perspective. Like that's like a structural, that's like a skeletal version of it as far as you can get. But other than that, like, where did it come from? How did it do it? Like, good luck with that.
All right, but how about this? So, but do you think we'll know when we get there, and then it'll all be cleared up then?
Maybe.
It'll all be cleared up, and everything will be put in its right place.
It might, but knowing may also, if you know too much, it may prevent you from reincarnating, right? So, are we ready to leave this state?
Well, that's what I was saying.
If you want to go back, then you don't want to know, and then you'll go back until you're done, and then you might be ready to learn. And then when you learned, then the purpose of this form of existence ends for you. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. No, and if we're on a longer trajectory, I guess like the idea of like graduating the school kind of a thing. Like you kind of complete the final grade and get the degree, as it were.
Yeah, after a couple of million reincarnations.
Yeah, after that's exact. Yeah, but it makes sense, like the limitation, like we were talking about before, from the perspective of like that source of everything, then creating us. It would make sense that we would be limited because, like, if you just know everything, I don't know if boring is the right word, but if you just know everything all the time, it's sort of it's who knows what that even is like, but that you know, that's
then what's the point?
But yeah, what's the point? Yeah, you just have that eternally. So then it's like, well, let's create all these myriad of different states of consciousness. And when we talk about a human, like someone like ourselves, who, you know, we don't know everything, we don't know everything about everything. We're learning, we're figuring stuff out. I mean, some people even just handling all kinds of things within just being a human.
It's the process of learning, going through it, and letting it change you. But if you know everything, then you just know it.
It's like you get to watch the movie.
Change, there's no growth.
And it's like getting to watch the movie from like if you've already seen the movie and you've watched it and you made the movie, it's like, all right, I've already seen and watched that thing. But if you could put that movie in front of some part of yourself that had never seen the movie, well, now you're getting another first experience of the wow, the awe of that, like you were saying. And then it was, then it was cool, like the awe of getting closer to the source too. That kind of links into that too. Well, go ahead.
What you just said, Gio, is the sentiment of what it means to declare, what it would be like to be the one who declares the end from the beginning. It's like you already know it all once you set it up.
But then experiencing all of these individual parts that don't know everything.
The point is that if you are that, then there is no point in experiencing it because you already know it, right? The experience is for those that do not know it.
All you have to do is manifest yourself in it in a state of not remembering yourself. And then you're experiencing it as a newborn babe, even though you're the one that set it up.
Right. And in that sense, that's why I say I think we are all fragments of God. Our spirit is like a little dust of like a skin cell of the original creator, separated to experience the creation.
I go with you aren't a fragment or a speck, because every speck of the source, it's like if I took a drop of water out of the ocean, you couldn't tell me what part of the ocean that came from. It's the same drop as every drop that comes out of the ocean. In that sense,
Eh,
all of us are a manifestation, or we're all the creator with nothing left out. Because even the smallest amount of the creator is fully the creator.
Well, yeah, that's
that's
the holographic nature.
a
on the level.
philosophy that's you can't back that, right? We are all individuals. Yes, we are, right? We are all different, and if we
No,
all be literally the same, having the same experience, that's no point. So I disagree. We don't have everything, but we have the root of the potential of all of it, and we can find that in the spirit. That's where we get the spiritual infinity, which comes the closest, and maybe even all the way to the end eventually, to the original God. That's how we are connected to God, through the spirit. And that's what Rudolf Steiner says too.
that's funny, because the position I take is that, or from what I know to be, is that the creator is spirit itself, and not a spirit, but spirit being the source substance. Everything gotta come forth from.
Yeah, but a thing can't create. It has to be a whole. It has to be an intelligence. So an essence doesn't do all things. It doesn't create anything.
So
It has to
I'm
be
not
a
as
whole.
Arwin, why?
A
Let me ask you
designer
this too.
has
Like,
to be
why,
there.
why go? Why, what? Because this is almost like a simulation. The way that days and time unfold. Why the time? Let me ask you that. Like, why time? Why are we going through this long, year after year? Like, why did we create this? Do you think? Like with the time
Because
factor.
without time, there is no limitation.
So this allows it to be so much more nuanced because you can have all these years and days and so much experience. I mean, when you think about,
Time allows limitation. That's it. Without
oh,
time,
by
there is no
putting yourself in
limitation. If
time, it
there's no
limits you
time,
from
then
everything.
everything is
It
infinite.
limits you from everything else that exists. You're saying puts you in time, and then there's an unfolding that you're now experiencing, like an
Right.
unfoldment.
It creates a limited medium for you to have a temporary experience. Without time, there's no limit, and that means everything, and then everything is the same.
Yeah. So then, are we doing this? Do you think, like, out of a like a something that's uncomfortable, or like a suffering of some sort? Like, oh, we have to do this, or we're something
No,
negative in a way, or are we doing this out of complete blissful? Well, we have. See, that's what I think we have to be, because like
curiosity.
even like a yeah, and to experience everything possible, basically every possible. Because
It
even
can
like you think
only
about
be curiosity. That's the only thing it can be.
and just interest to
What
experience
else would
everything.
make you limit your absoluteness other than curiosity?
So then that means that it wants to experience all these things, even the suffering, all of it. It's all
Yeah,
blissfully
well,
like
that is what
if you
it's
were God
doing.
kind of
So
thing
what
and you
else
could
would it
create
be?
well, I guess I'm asking you this, like if you were a kind of God, as it were, you could create anything, and you literally like you could create the best video game world, or you could blissful realms, you could do it all. Like that level of just exciting, like I can do anything, kind of thing. Do you think that energy is behind everything that happens, even car accidents, diseases, death, like the energy of that level of creation, like the Sims video game or something? Like, do you think it's like
In the
all of it is?
deepest depths, way beyond our temporary experience and consciousness, yes. All of it.
all
Experience,
intention, because
experience
to even
everything.
create the physical world, it has to have intention, let alone everything that goes into, like, even a car accident. It's very nuanced. You know, the woman fell asleep. Doesn't have to be a woman or man. They fell asleep. They veered off the road. They, you know, whatever. You know,
Well,
and
look at
the
it.
angle of the physics and all that has to match. And then
Exactly.
oh,
Well, look at it like this. People can literally get obsessed with everything and every depth and every detail of anything and then endlessly obsess over it and find more. So, yeah. It's
Could I
but I mean, it has no relation to actual temporary existence. Like, we're not going to see it that way. But like ontologically, underneath all of it, it's to experience everything. But I mean, our temporary conscious existence is going to protest that, though.
Yeah, do you mind if I weigh in here? I've got a kind of semblance of an idea, and I kind of just curious how it weighs in with you guys. I always like very stuck on the notion of the old dog, new tricks sort of problem. Especially like interacting with my parents, they just sort of didn't seem to, and I'm kind of slightly aware of also like neuroplasticity. It seems that young people seem to be able to solve novel problems, and then older people have a lot of trouble with it because they'll just give up. They'll keep trying over and over the solution that fails because they keep mapping on the old problem to this new problem that they're applying, and it's just not ending up in a proper solution. So I always kind of wondered, right? Like, I mean, if you're born into this existence and it's always like, I mean, if you're constantly coming back, I mean, it's because like you can only sort of in the material sort of existence, you can only learn a couple of tricks at a time, something to that effect. Or even like, even if, you know, the whole sort of, if there is one sort of being and we're being fractured and fragmented into many, then maybe it's trying to problem solve or do something or find something, a solution to something that's in a spiritual realm that is sort of being sort of played out in the material one. I don't know. These are the sort of ideas that I've pondered about.
Interesting. Well, there might be like a resonance with us on the other side, is a way to look at it. A fractal resonance. I mean, hallucinogens, hallucinogenic experiences certainly suggest that. I've experienced that in a big way. That there's like a sub realm, I call it the dark world, in between, where you get like not echoes, but rather like preforms of what will then manifest in a similar way in the physical realm, like a pre-meaning. So yeah, but
No,
the point
I mean,
is that when when you know everything, why would you then go here? Well, because it doesn't mean anything when you don't. When you don't limit yourself, when you can't experience curiosity, when there's no challenge because you got and know everything. Like,
yeah, yeah.
why
Sometimes I think
continue
of it as a
existing with having everything when you could be tempted by the experience of the temporary?
yeah. Sometimes I think of it as an antidote to the like. I would imagine living forever becomes very numbing, and I mean that's just a sort of a proposition. Obviously, I can't say that I've ever experienced living forever, but that maybe like the realm is either sort of the machine is built to sort of remediate that issue of having to live forever. It provides the antidote to that, and that is to imbue you within a sort of mortal coil for a temporal piece of time, and then you're just meant to return back to it, to your eternity. So that's if you're an individual and we're not just a fractured one central being. Otherwise, if we sort of more sort of think of it as a one central being that's manifesting everything, we're being fractured into it, then I start
Yeah, but
asking myself the question that the machine that we've been bought, like if we are to imagine that the realm is a machine and it's got cogs and that's what the sky is telling us, right? I don't like not a machine like in a simplistic way. It's like a spiritual friggin' machine. That would then be sort of indicating that it's creating this earthly experience for to solve a bigger problem. And that's just when I start thinking in my like problem solving sort of solution, right? Like
yeah,
I
but
kind of
that's a
have an
very
imagination
earthly way
towards
of
that.
thinking, because
It is, yeah.
problems
I'll
and
admit that.
solving problems is like a very contemporary timeline based issue. In eternity and all knowingness, you don't have problems. It only becomes a problem when things are temporary, because in an eternity there is no problem, all is solved. But then when all is solved, then there is no meaning, and then it just becomes eternity. And like eternity from a spiritual individual perspective, always turns into hell because nothing means anything anymore. You know everything, you've seen everything. It doesn't mean anything then to you. So then you get lured into temporary state, into being reduced to experience it again, to know the sensations, the curiosity of not knowing yet, to experience learning. And that's how I think it is. I don't think that's like you live, you're completely limited, then you die, and you are literally fully God. I don't think so. I think it's a spectrum in between. And I think that you can basically go all the way back, if that's meant to be, to return to the source, to the one, to the actual total God, or not yet, and just a little bit in that direction and then back again. Right? I think it's a spectrum in between. It's not just 1 and 0.
I agree with that. That's always how I've seen it as well. Yeah, that when you die, you're not going back to the source. Not quite yet. Maybe a couple million.
Well,
trillion
unless that's meant to be. You don't know. But I think there's in betweens, tons of them potentially.
Yeah, and like you were saying, inching back there a little bit. Well, that's why, like, ultimately, do you think, like, the spiritual journey, and then the idea of like spiritual awakening, spiritual rebirth, and transcendence, all of those words, and do you think that eventually we all are going to return to that source?
Theoretically, yes. Especially if we are all the one experience. Yeah. Then absolutely.
Well,
because there's only one. There's only one of us.
Yeah, I agree. We are one in that sense, which is such an ancient thing, going back to so many, like "thou art that" phrase, like you are it, basically. Yeah, well, of course, there's some traditions that are going to say God is separate and humans are separate, but yeah, I mean, in what we're talking about, like the part and the whole being one, and like I do think we're ultimately one, meaning there isn't really anyone else, as it were. That's why I don't think there's really a God out there. There's not like, hey, there's a God out there who has these ideas, like, and a whole person. I don't think that's the case at all. Like,
Well, it might
in
be,
that
but
sense,
then
like
it's us, right? But the
well, then
conscious
still,
experience is separated, though. But
no,
you
it could
all
have that.
connected into one thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like sorry, I was interrupting. I was just going to say, oh no, now I didn't hear what you said. So go ahead if you want to say your thing again. Sorry, I just didn't hear. But
You are who you're looking for.
well, now I forgot what I was saying because I got distracted. Well, oh, I was saying that, like, yeah, so that source consciousness could have its own consciousness to it, almost like maybe like the ultimate personality, like every human combined or something to that extent, like, and perhaps is like us maybe, or we are like it. I kind of think of like when you look at someone and you both smile from across the room and you just meet eyes, like I think of it like that, like the creator, it's just like that's that one, when you're just in that. And there's maybe a lot of other times that could be experienced as well, but it's like, so anyway, so it could have its own consciousness in that way. But I guess what I'm saying is that if we actually are it, then that would mean that there isn't really a God out there. There might be a source to our being, but that there isn't like a God actually out there in any way. And then in that way, if we are it, and then there's one God, therefore there aren't a bunch of other gods, as it were, in a sense. So if that
Well,
is
you
it, the
don't know
one,
that. Like, that's still thinking in ones and zeros, right? There might be a spectrum, right?
you're saying there could be a
Hold on.
source.
I speculated that there's an original God before the material realm existed that does not have a form, doesn't even have the concept of a form, that created the concept of a form. And from that concept of a form, separate forms were created that are basically the first personification of God, which can manifest in multiple gods. But it's
You have
not
no idea
the
how close you
original
are to
creator,
reality.
because I don't think that the original creator is conceptually like a being as we understand it. I think that a being is already part of the spectrum of incarnation, right? So that's
You're
how I kind of see it.
you're very, very close. Because even for what I know from the L of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he exists in pure spirit, and he exists in a formless state. And the first thing he did was took on shape and form, because when he willed to create, if he didn't take on a shape and form,
Right.
the creation wouldn't have a shape and form.
And that's how the Elohim came into being. The shapers, the things that actually design, or rather shaped the material realm as it is, right? Those are like the first incarnations of God into the God, the Elohim, the first ones that took form. That's how I see that.
Well, you just drop the plurality. Elohim is just one form. It's just the form.
That's El. But the Elohim are
The
basically
El,
plural. In the
this
Bible, it's plural.
No, the Elohim being plural is a Zechariah Sitchin conception, and that's who's kind of pushed it into the forefront. But Elohim has always been singular. Even the time when it's used in the script, it's speaking of a singular being. Like in the instance of Exodus 24, when it says, "Ben Abayu and the 70 elders of Israel went up and saw the Elohim of Israel, and he had under his feet a pave work of sapphire stone." So people try to extrapolate a plurality, but even in context, it's a singularity.
What about Genesis 1 something? I can't remember
This
where he
is
said.
going to be up for debate, and I mean, who are you to say that it's either one? It could be as a singular and yet still separate. I mean, if we as people, as a human consciousness, in some way, in whatever way, gonna gaze upon it, who's to say that we are gonna see it as one thing, that we're even capable of that? So maybe it is one, but it's also
Only appears
multiple. How do you know?
only appears in that form and fashion. Doesn't appear as a multiple. The only ones who appear multiple are demons. It's like when that one demon was kicked out, and he said, "What is your name?" And the demon said, "We are legion, for we are many." So the only one with a multiplicity one are like a demonic essence, and
What
the
about
I
creator's
don't share
singularity.
those conclusions, but I mean, fine, if that's how you see it.
where he says, "Let us make man in our image" in Genesis?
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
the,
See?
that's the father taking on the position, because again, the father doesn't is beyond form. So when the father takes on form, that's what the son is. It's not a separate entity. It's just the father in a sonship degree, or a lower estate from his eternal estate. And so when the father is giving
This is
Moses a
exactly
vision,
the same
well, in
thing,
that
though.
form, he says, "Let us make man in our image," because what the father is doing, he's showing forth that the form is not the ultimate. He's giving credit back unto his eternal estate.
Okay, yeah. Well, you are having what you described. It literally confirms what we just said. You're just not ready to agree with it.
What I'm sharing comes from divine vision revelation, not the mind of a man.
Yeah, sure.
I,
I do not have a written thing as
yeah, I'm not talking about writings. You can go to all the religions. They can't get over that us part. They don't even have an explanation for it. Like, that's something that people that don't agree with the scripture point out to people with scripture. I'm giving you an answer because the one who had it written explained this, and I'm just repeating what was explained by the one who had it written.
Yeah, well, the one who had it written had his own idea. So
The one who had it written is
if you have your
the formless
interpretation and I
progenitor.
have mine.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Fact remains that no matter the opinion of the right, and it's not going to be overcome. There will not be a total conclusion about it. It's only philosophical speculation, and I don't want to like die on any hill like that. So You
Wait,
could
Arwyn, do you think this whole realm could have been created, let's say whatever we're calling the source, but that would not actually be the source of everything? That's just like one source amongst many others, or a larger field of sources? Like, meaning everything we're calling the whole thing, the God, the creation, omnipotent, omnipresence.
God, dude, stop.
Is it?
Stop. Dude, you will never know, because we exist within that God, that creation. If there's more gods, ultimate formless creators that have created a creation, we'll never know about it, because we only
Okay,
exist
until we
within
get to
that
our
God.
source, and then maybe we'll have to go beyond that, or see if there's a beyond that.
If there, yeah, sure.
Okay.
We'll find out when we get there, if ever.
Well, that would be the idea that there's like more sources, basically. I guess if one, but that wouldn't really be like the one ultimate. But
Look, I just could tell you, if there's more sources in that sense, they don't have anything to do with one another. Sources, what comes out of a source does not mix with what comes out of another source. There's no relation, no connection. It's just source, our source. That's the only connection we have. And whatever the manager, the creator of that source does, could be other creators with other sources. How is that relevant, even philosophically? I mean, that is, you could just spiral on infinitely, and it's just like, yeah, but maybe the source is just one grain of sand in another universe. Yeah,
I know,
infinitely.
dude.
Good luck with that.
I
Never get
know.
it.
That's out of control. It does. It's just like fractal beyond compare. I know. Well, it's like the idea, like, let's say in this realm or whatever, you go through like millions of lifetimes and all this arduous, and you finally get to like this source, and then you get there and you're like, oh, and you see like a sea of other sources, and you're like, oh, I just went through one of them. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, at some point you just got to say, hey, this is enough infinity for me already.
Well, that's a contradiction. Enough infinity.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense to me. There has to be a source, though, a source, the ultimate source, because to orchestrate everything to this degree, and I mean, I
Yeah,
do
well,
think there's a
that's the
ground of being.
ontological primitive argument. That's logic, and it's also the reason why there's no point in like trying to actually go beyond just one source. Like, there is no logical point to do that.
Well, I think when people experience it, like in terms of like with 5-MeO DMT, for example, like very high doses of 5-MeO DMT, that's probably the one substance that is the quickest highway to the source that I know when you're in a human body would be 5-MeO DMT at a peak dose. That's the most likely compound to do that. I mean, other ones, DMT, other mescaline, etc., have their effects, but there's something about 5-MeO that like takes you to what, at least when people's experiences. I mean, again, it goes back to people's experiences, but
Yeah,
where
but I mean, how do you know
they
that is the
claim they
source?
got to this, they experienced the source, like they went
How do
there.
you know that is the source? It can just be a representation or simulation of the source within the temporary. It's like the furthest away from the contemporary you could get. But you don't know that is literally that just because it represents itself to you spiritually. Right?
Well, but it seems like that would then be applying some like
hold on.
potentially.
Technically, from a consciousness perspective, the entire spiritual realm is just a simulation from our perspective. So whatever you're going to think you're experiencing, you can't technically tell whether it is or not.
Wait, you said the spiritual realm is the simulation, or the physical realm's a simulation?
No. Our experience to our consciousness of the spiritual realm is a simulation. It's a simulation to our consciousness. It doesn't mean that it is in itself a simulation. What we experience of it is a simulation to us.
The spiritual is? That's what you're saying?
when you go on a DMT trip and you go into the internal and all that, that's a simulation. It's simulated for our consciousness. I like to compare it to a giant infinite holodeck. It's very much seems to function like that.
Like the Akashic Records? Type
Sure.
of concept?
Well, the Akashic Record is basically a theoretical framework for understanding the entirety of all spiritual information as it was pre-designed. And we can dwell through it with our temporary consciousness. And that could be, like when we're on the other side, that could literally be the representation of the Akashic Record to our consciousness through simulation. Yeah.
Like we're playing out a code?
Sorry, say again?
I said like we're playing out a code, like a script or a code. In
Yeah,
terms
a code
of
is a code. I like the idea of a code. When I was 17, I reasoned that out. Like, it's the pattern. Like, all
the
information,
DAO.
all existence, all things, spiritual and material, are like one singular fractal pattern that has like infinite depth and dimension. And it's like it could never be truly, even philosophically or technically, comprehended by a consciousness, temporary nature of consciousness. It's like one singular infinite pattern.
Here's another question, like in terms of like consciousness and how it's functioning and how the material world and everything is being sustained. Are we like, do you think that we're like in a sea of consciousness, as it were, meaning like you're over there and I'm over here? Or are we just experiencing one field and we're just experiencing a part of it?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it all depends on the relativistic nature of how are you going to see the consciousness. Is the consciousness the anchoring point, or is consciousness a separate thing dumped into the material realm, right? I mean, what is it? What's the consciousness? I know that's how we describe our experience, but what is it? You know? I mean, you don't even know how to describe it.
Well, there's
We
even the
can't.
idea of like the idea of states of like you could say that, like, let's say the source of all being, it's all, and it's creating all of this as like just that phrase, like states of consciousness. And even the idea that like consciousness, because there is the idea of like being a conscious human versus unconscious, there's that, but then
And
there's
it's not
also
really.
like just like consciousness as everything, like matter, light, sound is all consciousness forming, like a dance of consciousness is what everything is. There's even that
Yeah,
idea
that's
that
a
like
bit hippy dippy, but I mean, even when you say state of consciousness, it's not technically a state of consciousness. What it is the state of availability of information to our consciousness, because we
at that
don't know
moment,
what
yeah.
consciousness is.
It's what's available, like we were saying before, like from the totality, the one little snippet that you're getting. I'm getting
Yeah,
my little one.
but that's the thing that is available to the consciousness. What the consciousness is, we don't know. We just know how the consciousness can relate to all things. But we don't know what it is.
How we attribute it to something? I mean, this may be a bit redundant. Tell me, like, how you would expound upon it. But is it not just, in essence, observation of the material reality that we exist within? Like, I mean, I know the consciousness does an
No,
extrapolation. Like, I can say I'm more conscious. Okay, go ahead.
Observation. No, sorry. I can immediately answer. I already answered. Observation of the material realm is the information that is available to our consciousness. It doesn't define what the consciousness is. Nothing does. We don't know what it is. We just know that that is how we perceive our awareness of being.
I would put it that, like, we have a what we refer to as a human consciousness, is sort of embedded in like whatever. I kind of imagine that we're some form of antenna personally, with all the kind of other crystalline structures and stuff. But I don't want to get into that too much. But wouldn't it just be said that we're just sort of the consciousness is like, what would it be like, sort of whatever the human antenna is observing reality? Like I think that a dog has consciousness, right? Animals have consciousness.
Well, it
So they're
seems
just
like
like
it.
that
Yeah.
particular type form, like observing reality and interacting with it in kind.
Yeah, but it only seems like that because we seem to be able to resonate with it on other levels, like sensory levels. Yeah, it just becomes really hard to. But I mean, everything that pertains
Okay.
to consciousness is all about sensory. It's all about availability of things, information to the consciousness. Like nothing defines the consciousness itself.
So I can point out what sits below us as far as consciousness. It's generally most of the Animalia kingdom, right? What's your opinion on sort of angels and other earthly entities that are more disembodied, though? Like, is that consciousness or is that
Incorporeal
something
beings.
else?
Yeah, well,
What's
incorporeal,
that?
that's like the spiritual, and I mean, that's where consciousness is thought to be. So yeah, the consciousness to me is like the cherry on top of the pie, and the pie is the spirit. It's the eye of the spirit. But I mean, what is it though, you know?
I was listening to Lindsay talk about it last night, and he was this is just one quick extrapolation from one of his talks, but die. Where do we get the word die from? D-I-E. So it's to di yourself, because we perceive and interact through, like in this realm, through the eyes, essentially, where we're
That's
sort of
just
bound
English
by the
though.
eyes, and then to go pass on into death is to di yourself at that point. I'm
Yeah,
not
but
sure.
that is purely English, right? That's not that old. You want to get really old? One of the oldest words is tot. It's German, and that's based on toth, right? But it's also the same. Death has the same root as word as thought. It's like one of the most ancient things. It's death and thought. Thoth, right? The maker of the pyramids, arguably Trismegistus. It's like that individual, also known as Thoth, which is thought, which is death. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
I've no doubt that the English language is set with riddles, and the German's probably got a few less riddles in it, perhaps. But it all seems to be actually kind of. I mean, the information is right
Latin.
there. It's just
Most
sitting.
of English is written in Latin, which is an assembled creation by man. It's not that old compared to other more ancient, like more tribal,
I
we would call it languages,
I
which are more
suspect, from what I'm
directly old.
gathering from the larger sort of linguistic analysis that sort of I'm hearing about from other people, is that the information seems to be all there for us. It's just a matter of deciphering it. And the English language actually seems to be
Yes.
like embodiment, or like a kind of, it's a coded language in order for, maybe the worthy, maybe you would say, or just the influential to talk with one another, and have us, interact with the same topics, but you need
Yeah.
to understand it from a slightly different perspective, and then like it starts revealing itself as to what the true nature of the reason for the language and the way that we talk and why we talk the way we do.
Well, English is a more newer language, and the younger languages are, the more they are created to be dynamic and creative with it, because the needs of being able to do things with language become more complicated and detailed over time. An older language is much more rudimentary, and just like the depths are like very mysterious of what it can actually mean to the spirit, while English is much more pronounced, much more detailed and defined, And it was designed like that. It was designed to have dynamic meaning, to have possibility for multiple layers of meaning that can be blatantly deciphered. The older languages don't have that dynamic. They just have the spiritual depth inherent, and you just have to know it through the spirit.
Yeah, just in response to that, not that it's necessary, but I don't know. I've sort of come to the conclusion it seems to be making more sense to me that this tongue that we are all talking in, that we find ourselves in the modern world, I think I'm pretty sure it was intentionally designed in order to create this sort of discombobulation, you might say, to cause the psychological schisms. It's not to say that I don't think English is a very powerful language and romantic, but the power that it lends itself to is manipulation, unfortunately.
Absolutely, yeah. The
So
dynamic of it definitely also gives the possibility for deception. Yes. The more refined, the more multiple layered something becomes, the more prone it becomes to being used for deception. That's correct. Because the more dynamic and complicated, the more complicated the possibilities for interpretation becomes.
if I just look at it in the way that it's used within the politics, you can see, like, what did I see just recently, actually? Was it Camilla Harris, literally during her sort of presidential run and race, she said that she wanted to invest in depopulation. There's a little clip, and I think it was on Witz's podcast recently, actually, and pulled up that clip, and there's bloody Kamala Harris saying that we need to invest in reducing the population. And it's like they just boldface say that stuff. But because of the nature of English, you can kind of slot these terminologies like in a legal aspect, right? It's like, we told you, you consented. And they can slot this into language in such a way that it's sort of, you can say all these nice things around it and then just say one nasty thing in the middle of it, but you don't say it in a nasty way. You say it in a positive way. And this is
Right.
where the wizardry and the sorcery sort of commences.
Hiding in plain sight,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, they love to do that, right? Because it's also about where do people pay attention to? What part? Do they pay attention to the tone of a voice? Do they pay attention to the etymology of the words? Do they pay attention to how correct something was said, right? And they use this focus, this dynamic of the focus of people, and they try to assess, like, how do I get their attention on one part of what how I'm talking, what I'm talking about, while I can slip in things, confessions, spells, like basically magical effects on the subconscious that they will not perceive. Like, that's
Would you be able to go
process.
so far then with that notion? Sorry about the beeping in the background, and sorry for interrupting. I'm just kind of moving around. But would you be as willing to go so far with the notion that Kamala Harris actually didn't realize she said something bad herself? Like, she's so caught up in the sort of the wizardry and the sorcery that she like thinks that depopulation is a good thing, and she can just say it at whim, and she doesn't even think about it. This is why her intonation sounded positive about it, and then everyone else celebrates around. And it's just that
Dude,
it's actually because she's tricked. She was trained into this way of thinking. She's the teacher
yeah.
teaching the pupils, and then as it so goes down.
She does not, I mean, that woman does not necessarily have to be aware of what it even means that she's saying. She might just be repeating a talking point like a parrot that was given to her, not fully understanding what it even implies. Right? These people are just, a lot of them are just like robots, just rolling out what they were given, and they don't really understand it. They're just really good at repeating what they were given.
Yeah, I mean, that does fit in with my sort of comprehension of how they get away with these broader tricks. And that's because these tricks and simulations are not for us. Like when they shoot a rocket up in space, that's not for us, the general population. Maybe that Katy Perry one was okay, right? But it's more to actually trick the scientists that are working on the programs, like the simulation being so real that the actual operators can't even tell the difference between reality and simulation. But then once they've done and completed the mission, they're going to go out into the world and they're going to talk about this thing that they did, which was actually just a simulation. And you can do this with politics, you can do this with space, you can do this with toxicology and all the sort of germ theory stuff, in my opinion. Doctors do this. They're all participating in this similar activity.
The doctors are like that too. I mean, doctors, they become doctors because they just know how to copy paste and apply it according to the procedure, right? Like
Yeah, but see, like
doctors
the
learn
essence
things
is that
that
like
they don't really realize the connections. They just learn the procedures and then they just
see,
carry it out. They're like human robots, a lot of them.
I got a friend doctor, right? The reason she became a doctor was because she like I think she was pretty traumatized by her upbringing a little bit, but she also had a sister that was very sick with it doesn't matter, like it's a spina bifida or something, I think. And so she went into anesthesia specifically because like the solution to this problem is essentially pain and mitigating pain, which is kind of interesting, right? She chose that. Now she's out of that business now. She's recognized the problem. She's like basically forfeited her big pay packet for being an anesthetist, right? She gets frigging paid more than the bloody astronauts or any of those guys. And like, because she's seen the problem. But what was it? It's just like these people go into the world. They want all their like the program. What is it? The idea is that there are human beings that are orientated towards caring for one another. Like, you know, they want to solve the problem, like the health problem. Other people want to be sports stars. Some people want to be like mechanics and machinists and all this sort of stuff. But you got this sort of group of people that are orientated towards caring for people. And I mean, if you take 100% of those, you might say that 50% of them are orientated towards, what would you say, like they're less like they want to care for people, but they also just want the adulation to some extent, and therefore they're sort of like they're trickable. And anyone that's sort of in the healthcare system that I think that sees this stuff early on, like if you're a first or a second year student or like, you know, third year student or whatever, and you're in your doctors, like, and you start seeing problems with it, you get disillusioned. You just leave. You don't become part of the institution at that point. And then anyone that goes beyond that is just continuing to practice. Like they got beguiled, and they're just going to continue practicing this detrimental form of health medications.
Right,
So
they
I
just
don't know,
continue like a robot for the money.
a little bit, but I gotta give respect to them. Like it is for the money, but 3 or 4 years of pretty intense. Like, I mean, dude, I went to university, and I don't need to say what it was, but it's like one of the hardest degrees that you can do, and it's freaking traumatizing, man. Like, I stayed awake for
Yeah, I know.
72 hours multiple times. I'm sitting over the top of a computer trying to bash out assessments and all the rest of it. And basically, the entire degree is all about that.
Yeah,
And I'm
but
pretty sure that's
I
also
mean,
what doctors go through.
most doctors, they basically sacrifice their youth and their social lives in their youth just to do that. So yeah, when you sacrificed all that, it's very hard to give it up, even when you find out it's completely fucked. You know,
This is the sort of trauma-based mind control at that point.
it's a suffering investment. You
Especially
can't
like
just
given
let it all be
the
for nothing, right? And also because when you basically step away from it, you also get black marked, you get shamed, all that thing, you get discredited. Like it's not just like you could just walk away and change everything and then there's no detriment. Like you get a lot of burdens too from doing it. So yeah, it's very tough to step away. Right? From being a respected, highly paid individual that gets a lot of respect from the majority to suddenly being like an outcast and considered to be a fraud or whatever by a lot and by mainstream and all that. Yeah, it's terrible.
There's a lot of Mockingbird-esque aspects to that, though. It seems like the news media, or the, like, say you're a doctor or something, and the authorities and the higher ups start ridiculing a certain kind of, like, anti-vaxxers or something. They set the tone. They make what is acceptable, and then you've got a small sort of group of, I kind of relate a lot of this stuff back to this sort of the hierarchical institution of like religious orders and that sort of thing. So cardinals,
It is
and
very
bishops,
much like a religious order. It's
yeah,
a
cardinals and
religious
bishops will
medical
ridicule.
institute.
They'll ridicule a subset of people for their behaviours, maybe like witches or something, and then the priests will jump in after they've seen the example set. You've got these other set order of people, priests, that just sort of they start mimicking because they believe in the central doctrine of the authority, and maybe they just haven't got the wherewithal to think how they're being sort of fooled into the situation. And it does explain why this is an observation that outsiders make. Insiders can't have a lot of difficulty doing. The insiders are actually the ones that do flip, which I do observe a few, particularly within the healthcare industry. Those are the most interesting to me. They have the most to lose, and yet they chose to go in that direction.
Yep, indeed.
That's a self-sacrifice on an order that I don't really see in the modern world too often. You might see that when like a mother might sacrifice their well-being for a kid or something, but you don't see too many people sort of sacrificing their own personal aspect for some other sort of general public. It's more like they're sacrificing themselves because of truth, and they're willing to sort of do that.
Right. Well, there's also people in there that are so smart and dynamic that they basically start compartmentalizing themselves. So they will have outward basically be like a statist and a doctor, but then outside of public attention, they will basically just completely switch to another approach and then kind of apply what they figured out actually works in secret. So that
Well,
also
this is
happens.
interesting, man. Like that doctor I mentioned, the anaesthetist before. I mean, she has some she had. I haven't spoken to her too much recently, but she had something of a schism. She didn't like her friends knowing that she's an anaesthetist. She's a bit of a party goer and all the rest of her. And I think she kind of she was cottoning on to, I don't know, what would you say, a lot of the medical stuff, particularly during COVID and stuff, because I was starting to cotton on to it, and I was like pointing it out to her. I was like, "What do you think of this?" And I think by the end of it, basically, she summarized it as like she was always kind of aware of it, but she didn't exactly know where the problem was coming from. Like where, because you go into a hospital each day and then you're greeted by all your other friends, like your friends at the hospital that you work with, and you're all supporting one another and you're doing super long shifts and you're trying to save lives and there's camaraderie and all the rest of it. But then when it comes to the administration, like they're just fingering you like 6 ways from Sunday. You're getting screwed over. You're doing like 15-hour shifts and all the rest of it. So I think it does. Like it's literally there to cause like something of a schism within the persons. And this is why, she had basically a split personality, dude. She would be like one person in one place in one time, and then later on she'd just sort of have all these other different characters like popping out of
Different
her.
formats, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that uncommon, by the way. Like a lot of people in the medical field have that kind of thing. All these different ways of being, different personality traits expressing themselves in those different states. Anyway, it's been a super interesting conversation, but it's like almost 4 o'clock at night here, and I kind of have to stop making noise.
Yeah, no, cheers, Arwijn, dude. That was great, man. Yeah, we got to spend some couple hours there, and that was awesome. Yeah, we covered a lot of topics, and yeah, man, appreciate sharing all that and going as deep as
I
we
wish I
did. And
recorded it. Like that was worthy to basically play on my channel. I mean, great discussion. I'm kind of envious because in the morning I'm not going to be this inspired. But it's
well,
been
yeah, I mean, it's
riveting. I
on
really
the.
appreciate it.
It'll be on all of the streams on here are posted onto Rumble. We
Right.
stream on YouTube as well and other places too, but the
I
videos are
know.
pretty
I'm
much
watching it
uploaded
on
to Rumble.
Rumble, but I mean, there's like 10 people watching. It's like, damn. Like, could you imagine that conversation would go out to like 1 million people? That would be epic. But it's not meant to be.
Well, at the moment, yeah, it may not. At the just with all the state of the world, the level of censorship, everything that's going on, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it is
But
pretty. They've put like an iron curtain on this information, or a lot of, and just the whole
yeah.
state of the world, yeah. But well, I mean, I kind of
In
see a
the
lot of
end,
these recordings on
but
here. I mean,
when you have these kinds of super deep, spiritual, deep and highly understanding conversation, it almost becomes telepathic, right? In the end, such conversations are really just for the people that are having the conversation. So this is really just for you and me and Ricksky and the guys in the chat or in the panel here that can follow it. It's really for us, right? And we can carry this kind of experience forth and let it echo and let it return. And then maybe one day, crowd will be ready to receive it. You never know. But it's good to know that it's just riveting to like connect up like this again. So I really appreciate that.
yeah,
Thanks.
for sure, man. I mean, there's so much strife in the world, and so many people that want to, do all kinds of, as we know, the more attacks and all the other stuff. So it's like to be able to actually have like just to have an engagement where basically like that strife doesn't have to be there, and you can actually just be able to kind of fully express, what I'm just saying. It's sort of rare to be able to have some of these conversations in this way, in that sense, and to be able to kind of reach like these deeper levels. Because yeah, a lot of the time when there's so much contention and those kinds of things going on, I kind of think of it as like it's like recharging your batteries in a sense. Like I have certain
Yeah,
people I
exactly.
connect with. Yeah, it's like recharging on a deep level, and then that charge lasts for a long time because
It's
sometimes
like
these
connecting on a deep
discussions are more
level.
rare. They're kind of more rare in a way. So
It's like I have these like almost these kinds of depths. I mean, not this far with like a good friend of mine that I talk over the phone with in Dutch, by the way. And she's also like she has almost this level of understanding. And I can like it's like telepathy just talking with her. Like we just finish each other's sentences and it's like hyper esoteric, but we would just totally get each other. And it's just the connecting up going into the depths and then finding that you're getting each other. That connection is the thing that recharges you. It's not even the information, it's just that you can connect up like that, feel that connection again with these senses. That's really the thing that recharges you because it doesn't happen that often. Like there's not that many people and opportunities to do that with in this crazy ass world.
yeah, and I mean in terms of like resonance and vibration, because yeah, I mean whether you're talking to 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, whatever, thousands, millions. I also think of it. I mean, these recordings on here, I mean, technically they're historical. I mean, they're all being saved and, just in terms of historical use. I sometimes think, what would it be like to listen to this 500 years in the future, 2000 years, I mean, that's a whole other thought, dude.
Well,
Think about
that's
like
funny
what,
that you said. You know what that's going to be like for them? Just like for us when we find like old Tartarian scripts
yeah.
or philosophy. That's exactly what it would be like.
Can you imagine if people in the future like have access to all the whole, flat earth as it were, just the whole community and all this stuff. I mean, let alone just everything, not only these recordings, but just everywhere. So it's
That's crazy, man. I mean, the majority would just say, yeah, screw that. And then other people would be like, I'm going to dedicate my life to studying this. And they're like, wow, at the end of my life, I'm 80 years. I got to like 0.002% 2-3% of the thing. And I'm really proud I got that far.
Yeah, exactly. I know. That's funny. Well,
Yeah, I'll talk later again. Next opportunity.
yeah, man. Well, what was I gonna say? Oh, I was just gonna say, like, just in terms of the future thing, like, just to finish on that real quick, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, it just makes me think of oh, I was gonna say, like, just maybe one last thing, like, what do you think? Like, do you think the globe is only in this time, or do you think it's been other times? Because I guess this links back to, like, if people were listening to these recordings way in the future, if they were to look back on like a window in time, like, oh my gosh, they thought this was the whole globe era, and they thought it was a globe, like.
No. No, not like this. No, I think that the way that the globe is like a true belief religion like this, I think that's really this batch of the last few hundred years. I think before that there was a globe cosmology, but I think it was just like a science fiction story and everybody knew it was. They couldn't actually be fooled, but they would just use it for entertainment as a story medium. That's what I think. I think it has existed, but like everybody was aware, like this is not real, of course. But that's just how we like to tell stories. That's what I think.
That's interesting. Well,
Basically,
there's even the
they
idea
still
that
do
this
it, but
model
now
came
they
like.
made us all believe it's real.
What do you think? Even the ones in control now that are doing it, did they even come up with it, or did they just hijack it from others before
I think
that?
they inherited it. They
Yeah, I
founded
think so
it.
too. They founded it. They Freemasonry. They found some free cosmology theories, and then I'm just joking because when they say founded, it's like they're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
that basically means taken.
No, found it is like took it over from the old civilization,
Yeah.
right? But maybe they didn't literally do that, but it could be. It could also be that they just found these tools, right, to map the celestial effects, right, the non-local holographic angular manifestations and everything, and then thought, you know what? We can work with this. We can actually make it into a real thing. Could have happened like that too. It's very hard to figure out because all we get is just these supposed historical figures, right? And how they did it in their discussions and philosophies. So we don't really know how they actually originally came up with it. But we got a story of how we're told they came up with it.
Exactly. That's what we are given. Yeah, the actual truth of it. That's the much deeper mystery. I was gonna say too, just one last thought as well. Like, do you think I don't know what your thoughts are on ether? I'm not really trying to not necessarily in terms of like the physicality, but I'm not trying to get into ether. I'm actually just saying it in the sense of like. I was gonna ask you if you agree, like or if you think in a way that like let's say this conversation, whether there was 50 listening, 100, 5,000, however many are listening, do you think that no matter how many are listening, do you think that there's also like something happening in the ether, like because it's not like none of these conversations related to what we're talking about are happening anywhere. That's not really the case per se, but I mean,
You
it's
mean
not
the
like no
spirit
one's
ether?
covering. It's not like
Please tell
anyone's
me you mean
covering.
the spirit ether.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, like, okay, it's not like no one's covering exactly what we talked about, but we had a unique discussion there that was. So what I'm saying is, do you think there's like almost like an imprint or like a processing or even like an evolving in some sense on a more collective level through if like the idea of like an ethereal connection between us and that when there's conversations even if it's only two people, just two people
Yeah,
having a
sure.
conversation, that
Resonance.
can actually have like resonance and even effect on like the collective unconscious and of people and even
Right. Well,
to the
there is a resonance, and it's like even sort of being prophesized. Like it's an age of awakening. What does that mean? It means that you get to see deeper. And when you get to see deeper, that means you also get to resonate with other people that get to see deeper. And then you get to see even more deeper. And that just then continues on echoing as an imprint so that other people that might for the first time stumble upon it find themselves suddenly unexpectedly capable of seeing that deeply and discussing that deeply as well. So it's like it keeps echoing and further imprinting you could say through the spiritual ether. Yeah, because it's like that information, it's like a record, and like the ways our consciousness interact with it, it seems to be getting deeper and more detailed over time. It's the time for it. So they say.
And then it's like we're moving it forward every moment, basically. I mean, not just you and I, but everybody in some way. It's kind of like I was just thinking of like moving the record forward, or kind of, yeah, in some way adding to the unfoldment, because there's even that
Deepening
idea
the
like through like
fractal.
morphic resonance, like something you and I talked about today. It might pop up in someone else's conversation a week later in some other part of the world, possibly. Like
Yeah,
there's even
sure.
that idea.
Yeah, it's just deepening the fractal, and one person can do that, and then other people that don't even know you, they will also do it. They also like to call this like the 100th monkey effect, even though there's some people say that's debunked or whatever. But I mean, yeah, I just call that spiritual resonance. Like if a group of people are going through something, it's going to resonate with other people that are also probably going to go through it, even though they do not know those people. It's just going to happen, like a collective spiritual connection. So yeah, hope that answers the question.
Yeah, for sure. And then just to tag on to that, people talk about like when they do like the breath work, like the breathing, the really deep breathing where you access these powerful states of consciousness, or even when doing like ayahuasca ceremonies and things, that there's that way too. That's like you can be like processing like deep, like ancestral trauma, or deep, even as you know, in a kind of group way where there can sometimes be like really powerful processings, or even like with peyote or something, you know, people, you know, are, you
Opening the
know,
gates.
opening, yeah, and then like even healing on that more. So that's like a whole nother level of being able to like, you know, be on an island somewhere doing a peyote ceremony and being able to change the world. I mean, I know some are, you know, the
Yeah,
materialistic
that's
mind
taken
is
a
going to say,
little
no
far.
way,
I
you're
mean,
just tripping out on an island. That's what the material mind's going to say. But the materialistic one, but I mean, can we actually do work? I mean, I don't want to put over importance in just a discussion, but I mean, there's more than just words that occur. But I'm just saying, like, can you actually do work like in the benefit of the collective through some of these layers, which kind of reminds me of like the like Rupert
yeah, of
Sheldrake and
course
like the
you
morphic
can.
field resonance.
But that's just universal. It's always about moral principle and cohesion, right? Doing the work means getting the misunderstandings out of the way whenever they are, and deepening the insight, and like giving more framework. It's just deepening the fractal, and that always resonates. And when it's there, then it has been done, then it's timelessly in the spirit ether. And then when somebody else arrives there in the same frequency, in the same position, in the same type of thought, then the path has already been laid a little for them. So it's easier to get into it. It's
Right, dude, totally.
resonance. That's what resonance is.
That's amazing, and how that happens like remotely, because like Rupert Sheldrake and some of his work about, you know, like these monkeys in South America would learn how to use sticks to get ants out of a hole or whatever, and then without those monkeys going over to Africa, the ones that were in South America, all of a sudden the same species, you know, the similar species of monkeys in Africa would just instantly know how to use that tool to get the ants out
Right.
of the
They
hole.
come up with the same idea, and then it automatically just rolls. They don't
So is
have
that
to
why like
figure out as much.
musicians
They
of
just
like
know it. Yeah.
like children, like Tiger Woods' son is really good at golf, and you know the musicians' sons, like, is there a like in a way in which the parent paved the way with so much of their work that when the child comes it's like already embedded,
Right.
or there's some, yeah,
Inherited skills.
that's
Yeah,
like morphic
that's because
resonance
there's like
through.
I can.
information of your experience is actually downloaded into your subconscious, and some of your subconscious, like your instincts for starters, but more than that, like also skill memory, like can actually be uploaded directly into your newborn when they are formed. Like all of that just gets, you have like memory basically you're uploading in your kid.
I think I can. I can provide something of a material explanation for that if you guys want me to roll at it just quickly.
What means quickly? It's almost 4 here.
You don't need to stick around, man. This could just be for others, but
All
it
right.
takes about 2-3 minutes. So like, I don't take long to talk. Have you ever
Well, wait.
seen
Well,
those?
let me just say maybe before you start, I just want to say, Arwijn, yeah, bro, it was really great talking. I'm gonna be listening, but I'm gonna kind of mute up for a sec. So yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, cheers, and it was just really a blessing to spend these few hours, and yeah, it's kind of rare that I know you and I haven't really been able to probably have a conversation like this because a lot of it was you and I going back and forth. So yeah, I just appreciate. Yeah, I know I was asking a lot of questions, and
Yeah, we
you know,
got
it
some
was very
people here
lively.
earlier trying to get in between us, right? But they all left, so we tired them out.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes they're looking for this. Some people are looking for the globe debate. Some people are looking for, you know, it's different people. It's such a wide range, and it's been kind of quiet today, so it's kind of a quieter day. But yeah, no, I just wanted to say, just yeah, blessings, and yeah, just appreciate all of the conversation, and I'll be on mute. I'll be listening, but yeah, hopefully,
Me
we'll
too.
talk soon.
Yeah, we'll see each other again, and who knows, a conversation like this will roll out. I also, by the way, invited you to my server, which I'm planning to kind of use that maybe for my shows, if you'd be interested. It's not active or anything, but I mean, you got an, so you know.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, and I joined it, so yeah, I think I
Oh,
should be in
awesome.
there. So yeah,
Right.
no,
So
that sounds good.
maybe I'll see you there sometime too. Right.
Yeah, man, I'm always open for, yeah, I mean, because sometimes, like, yeah, when it's the open panel and there's all kinds of different, you know, topics and it's fast paced, but I mean, sometimes it does take, like, I mean, part of the reason that we were able to have this is because it was pretty quiet today in the VC. So we were able to kind of, you know, so I'm just saying we can always do, like, I mean, on here we can do like anytime just like an event type thing where, you know, an hour or two discussion. That way, like, we could just have, you know, whether it's like a panel of like five of us or three or whatever it may be. And then that way, you know, I'm just saying that's always possible here. And then, yeah, in terms of, you know, if you're thinking of streaming as well. But yeah, I mean, these are rare conversations. I really do. The whole conversation, I was like, I actually was going back because on YouTube, I'll pull it up and I'll pause it knowing that, wait, I want to hear that again, you know? So I have about the 20 tabs open that I want to go back. I might have missed, you know, something that was said a little bit because that was a lot. That was a lot of rich and stuff I haven't heard before. So, and I was just really in like the detective mode, like just kind of listening, asking questions. I wasn't trying to like make claims or even debate it. I was just really wanting to
I could hear
understand.
it. I enjoyed that. So I'm really glad that we just roll it off like that. It was my pleasure, man.
Yeah, man, me as well. Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, appreciate that, and yeah, I'm gonna go on mute. But yeah, man, talk to you soon, and
see you next time. Have
yeah,
a great night.
for sure.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you as well.